Today's meeting is a hybrid board meeting, which means that some presenters and guests will appear in person and some will appear virtually. For those who are presenting virtually, please remember to mute your mic when you are not speaking, and when you present, make sure your mic is unmuted and your camera is on. Our first presentation is our budget kickoff and overview, equity in budgeting, our Seaback and CIC. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Christian Elkin. I'm the county's budget director. I use she, her pronouns. I just wanted to kick off this morning by walking quickly through our agenda and then introducing some of our special guests that we have here this morning. So on the agenda this morning, we're going to start with our central budget community and budget committee. And Danny Bernstein is here with me, which is exciting to be in person. Then we'll hear from our new director of the Office of Diversity and Equity, Joy Fowler, and her team to discuss our equity approaches to the budget. And then after that, I will present the fiscal year 2023 budget overview. And I'm going to be joined by Kim Melton, the chair's chief of staff, to walk through the American Rescue Plan investments. I also have my team behind me here, and Jeff Renfro is here to answer any of the hard questions that you might have. Before we start, I just wanted to thank everybody who helped put this budget together. $3.3 billion is a lot of dollars. It's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of hard work, from starting with the departments and then moving on to the work with the chair's office. Kim and I have spent a lot of weekends and nights together. She is my new budget bestie, so I'm super excited about that. And I'm very lucky to be able to work alongside all of these people who take this work so seriously and recognize that the investments in our budget are investments in our community, and it reflects our priorities and the work that we need to do to keep our thriving community safe. So with that, I would like to introduce Danny Bernstein from the Office of Community Involvement, along with Shawnee Harris-Bagwell from the Central Community Budget Advisory. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. It's nice to be here in person. I'm Danny Bernstein. I use they, them pronouns, Director for the Office of Community Involvement. And Shawnee Harris-Bagwell, this year's chair of the Central Community Budget Advisory Committee, is joining us virtually this morning. Shawnee will be presenting recommendations from the committee. And before I turn it over to her, just wanted to give some quick context for this year's Community Budget Advisory Committee, or Seaback program. As a refresher, and for any members of the public who may be listening, our Seabacks are made up of community members who work together to study a county department's budget and make recommendations about best using our county resources to serve the community. Our Seaback members have all volunteered their time and worked hard over the course of the year to finalize their recommendations on the fiscal year 2023 budget. And last week, county leadership received a copy of their written reports with their recommendations, and those are also available on the Office of Community Involvement's website. Over the course of the budget work sessions in the coming weeks, each of our 9 departmental Seabacks will present those recommendations, which represent the work of 58 community members serving on this year's committees, including 12 new members who joined us this year. I do want to just take a moment to thank all of our Seaback volunteers for the time they take to really craft thoughtful recommendations on the budget, as well as to the staff across departments who support their work. And as I mentioned, Shawnee will be presenting the recommendations of the Central Seaback, which makes recommendations on issues that impact multiple departments and are relevant countywide. And I always want to give a special thank you to those Seaback members who, in addition to serving on their department Seaback, put in extra time to serve on the Central Seaback as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shawnee to present their recommendations on next year's budget.
Thank you, Danny. Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. My name is Shawnee Harris-Bagwell, and I am the chair of this year's Central Seaback, and I also serve on the Departments of County Assets and Management Seaback. We can go to the next slide. Oh, nope, that's the right one, thanks. Our committee is made up of representatives from each of the 9 Seabacks, and this year 13 members attended the Central Seaback meetings and contributed to our discussions and recommendations. Our committee met 4 times between January and March, and we met with several county staff to deepen our understanding of countywide issues. We met with the Office of Diversity and Equity to learn about progress and future plans for the Workforce Equity Strategic Plan. We met with Christian Elkin, the budget director, who provided us with an overview of new county revenue streams and the impacts on next year's budget. We met with Chair Kafoury to hear her priorities for next year's budget and share emerging priorities and concerns from our Seabacks. And finally, we met with the joint offices of homeless services to learn about the office's core programs and services, funding sources, and priorities funded by the Metro Supportive Housing Services Mentor. The committee agreed upon a value statement to ground our recommendations, which I will read now. We assert that budgets are moral documents and numbers on a report aren't just money. They're people and their lives. We maintain that Oregon is a state built on white supremacist values, and Multnomah County has a responsibility to decenter whiteness and break the generational curses of oppression. We represent committees studying the county's public safety systems, health and human services, public infrastructure, and services for the most vulnerable in our community. We are here to ensure that the needs of our diverse communities are voiced. We prioritize people whose voices have been historically silenced. We uphold that budgets can be used to oppress and often are. We uphold valuing intercultural intelligence, recognizing the unique needs and barriers faced by different communities, and effectively engaging and serving those communities excluded from and harmed by dominant culture practices. We uphold that people who work for the county should be a reflection of the people it serves, that the budget should be used to protect our environment and our public spaces. We uphold that by centering those most historically excluded, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, people with disability, neurodivergent folks, LGBTQIA+ folks, folks who are experiencing houselessness, people affected by addiction and mental illness, people experiencing a lack of financial resources, that we are able to afford more to everyone. We need to think generations ahead and how what we do now is going to affect future people. What we do now will affect our children, our grandchildren, and their children's children. We want to make sure we continue to improve our community. In addition to agreeing on this value statement, as a committee, we also recognize that this budget cycle was unique and that county revenues grew substantially. So we focused our work on understanding the progress that's been made on the recent voter-approved ballot measures because they're so critical to public priorities. Next slide, please. Our committee agreed on 5 key priorities that we encourage the board to consider as you finalize the fiscal year 2023 budget. Particularly, how to use the new revenue and where to make deeper investments. Our first priority, improve housing stability and security. We encourage the county to continue investing in our urgent housing crisis response and to direct additional funding towards culturally specific and responsive service and program models that demonstrate success in helping people make sustainable transitions from houselessness to permanent housing. In particular, we encourage the county to do this work in a coordinated manner so that we can create an equitable community where all have access to safe, affordable, and accessible housing. We believe this should be the essential priority of the 2023 budget. Second, invest in behavioral health care. 2 years of pandemic-induced stress and disruption have increased the mental health challenges of many in our community at the same time that care became more difficult to deliver. We must invest more in our public health infrastructure with a particular focus on our behavioral health system. We believe the county's goal should be to ensure that all people who struggle with mental health and substance abuse have appropriate and straightforward access to the services they need to get well. We've neglected this population for far too long, and increased investments are necessary. Third, emphasizing culturally relevant and specific programs. We support the county's efforts to rethink and reprioritize government services to better address the needs of underrepresented communities. Due to the extent of the historical harms that need to be addressed, we urge the county to treat this as an ongoing process and part of governance. We encourage the county to invest in and seek out opportunities to engage these communities in a co-design process to ensure that their needs are addressed in culturally relevant and specific ways. Fourth, reduce violence in our communities. Gun violence and homicides are at record levels, and this violence disproportionately affects neighborhoods in which we have historically disinvested. There are many root causes for this situation, and we believe that investing in the work of the Departments of Community Justice and Human Services will help to address many of them. Additionally, it is critical to repair trust between the most affected communities and the county's criminal justice system so that we can work together to solve problems. With proper oversight mechanisms in place, the Sheriff's Office requests for additional training and implementation of body-worn cameras can improve accountability and safeguard the rights of those who interact with law enforcement. Further, reopening local DA offices can improve justice outcomes through better partnerships and collaboration with community. And finally, to continue our history of transparent and accessible elections. The Multnomah County Elections Division is run with impressive integrity, transparency, and professionalism. And sustaining that performance is critical to maintaining public trust in our local government. Increasing staffing and investment in voter outreach will both reinforce the division's efforts against forces that cast doubt on election integrity and expand accessibility and participation to all parts of our community. Those are the recommendations for this year's Central Seaback. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Why don't, are there any other members of the CIC Seabacks here with us today?
No, just Shani this
Okay.
morning.
Shani, I'm gonna, thank you so much for what you've done. This is an amazing presentation, and I know that the commissioners all want to express their thanks to you and your team. So we'll have everyone give a short but sweet message of thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Shani. I think your budget priorities are spot on. And I just appreciate all the many, many hours that you've put in your entire team, and just want to thank all of the CBAC members. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Thank you, Chair. Yep. Thank you so much, Shani, for your work on this, for the work of the 13 other members of the Central CBAC and all the CBAC members. This is just a really, not just the priorities, but really the way that it was grounded in values to help guide the work that you did. I just think that that's amazing work. And as always, the work that you do is very significant to us as we take on this budget work. So thank you so much.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Shani, and all the members of the Central CBAC. That is really a heavy lift to serve on a department CBAC and then on this one as well. And I want to appreciate what I thought was a really powerful statement from you, beginning with the values, grounding in the values, and then moving to priorities that are aligned with those values. And every single one of the values is important. The one that particularly stood out to me was by centering those excluded, we can afford more for everyone. I think that is an absolutely essential message as we continue to do this work and in guiding the budget priorities that come from that. So thank you so much for all of that.
Commissioner Myron?
Shani, I want to add my thanks. It has just been, I've been privileged to connect with you like monthly for quite some time and have always appreciated your insight and your wisdom. And today you just brought that all to the forefront. And so I am just deeply appreciative of you and your work, of the Central CBAC. Thank you, Danny. And I look forward to to using that vision, that lens, putting that together as we start this this deep budget dive and looking at this and all that we do. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Shawnee, so much. Hopefully, I will be able to use some of that information in the next version of the budget director's message with your permission. So I really appreciate that. It is one of the most fun things when I get invited to any of the Seabacks. I really enjoy how thoughtful and the questions that they ask and just the the different perspective that they bring to the table as we're developing that budget. So this was a great presentation. I'd like to invite Joy Fowler, our new Director of Office of Equity. And we're going to talk a little bit this morning about how we took that next step in embedding equity into the budget process. And I know that Joy has a team behind her. And so I'll stay with you until they're ready to come up so that you won't be alone during your first budget presentation. Welcome, Joy.
Good morning, everyone. Joy Fowler, Chief Diversity and Equity Officer. I use she, her pronouns. And I am really excited to be here for my first budget kickoff. It has been definitely a whirlwind, and I have appreciated every moment of it. To share a few words just about how we built equity into the budget process. Christian is right. I have my team here in case you have any questions that I am unable to answer. That is Nisha Saxana and Alejandro Juarez. So I am thrilled that they are here to support me, and I cannot thank them enough. This year, my team, equity managers and others, led us through the budget process, ensuring equity was infused throughout all aspects of it. In January, we had over 140 attend special trainings regarding how to apply the county's equity and empowerment lens to budget development. Not only something we're proud of, but something that we can say we will continue. A special thank you, of course, to my team, Nisha and Alejandro, equity managers, and others. I am actually thrilled that we have embraced the expectation of working with equity managers to see them as a valuable resource during the budget process. The budget tool helps departments to identify areas of success and opportunity so they can come to budget discussions with information on how equity principles and analysis have informed narratives, decisions, and program offers. What we want everyone to walk away with are the three things you see on the slide ahead of you. That it is imperative that we prepare budgets with equity impacts in mind. Everything from prioritizing the priorities of the organization, aligning with the WESP, engagement with departments and equity managers, and the budget advisory committees. We also want people to be able to confidently explain how they used equity to make a decision on programs and services, followed by seeing our program offers deliberately reflect an equitable approach. When we think about the numerous crises we've been facing over the last 2 years, coupled with learning how those crises have impacted our Black, Indigenous, and communities of color and other marginalized communities, being intentional about our budget process to build in equity is truly transformational work. When we incorporate Multnomah County values of trust, safety, and belonging, and our commitment to inclusively leading with race into the budget process and see the results in the budget process itself, it's a demonstration of us operationalizing our values directly into county programs, services, and systems. We see our budget as a moral document and clearest expression of our priorities. A little insight to how we apply equity into the budget. Next slide, please. The Equity and Empowerment Lens is a quality improvement tool used to enhance planning, decision-making, and resource allocation, leading to more racially equitable policies and programs. At its core, it's a set of principles, reflective questions, and processes that help us to do the following. Look to find the true root cause of disparities, recognize what works, change how we make decisions, and truly change the way we do things. For budgeting, there are 3 focus areas. From a program level, this includes data to assess racial disparities for client populations, client feedback, for quality improvement, culturally specific strategies, and programmatic design. You heard me talk about reflective questions. So an example of a reflective question during this section would be, what are the demographics of program participants? Is the program designed to address racial or other disparities? From a measurement standpoint, program offers currently include both output and outcome measures. An example of an outcome measure may look something like increasing culturally specific contacts within a program by a certain percentage. An example of a question here might be, what do you do to analyze racial disparities for your service population? And then last but definitely not least, from a department level, the county has consistently asked departments to incorporate and describe the ways that their department budgets reflect our organizational commitment to advancing equity. An example of a question here would be, who will bear the burden of a proposed spending reduction or program cut? The equity and empowerment lens aids us as we continue to focus on budget equity. But you're hearing from me, but I would love for you to hear it in action by a department. So if I can bring up my special guest. Next slide, please. So you heard me mention that the budget equity tool helps departments to identify areas of success and opportunity so that people can come to the budget discussions with information on how equity has informed narratives, decisions, and program offers. Today, I would like you to hear from Jacob Messman of Multnomah County's Aging, Disability, and Veteran Services Division. And when Jacob concludes, we will turn it immediately back over to Christian. And I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts regarding equity in the budget process. Jacob, thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Morning.
Morning, Chair Kafori and commissioners. My name is Jacob Messman, and I use he and him pronouns. I work in Aging, Disability, and Veteran Services as a Quality and Business Service Manager. And our team's primary responsibilities include budget work, technology, data analysis, as well as research and evaluation and quality improvement. The ADBSD budget for fiscal year 23 is about $109 million. And so I'm excited to talk with you today about the process that we've used with the ODE tools, DCHS tools, to focus on racial equity in service delivery. I've been with the division for the past 2 years, and I report to Irma Jimenez, the interim division director. I've been thinking back over our team's equity journey. Just thought I would kind of walk through and tell you a little bit about our story over this last year in developing our budget. And the budget includes both the money and the program offer pieces that Joy spoke about. And so I'll also try to let you know sort of some of the changes that we've made and the impact to the communities that we serve. First, I just wanted to mention I'm grateful to be here to talk about our work and also to work for ADBSD, where we can focus energy and resources on equity and social justice work. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Irma for leading us through this work and guiding me through this process these past couple of years. So in terms of our journey this last year, there's kind of 3 phases that I would break it down into. One of them is the prep work, and then the other is implementing the tools, and then where we are now, it's kind of lessons learned, look back, and next steps. And so, so we started last fall by my team attended an equity lens workshop with Sumeri and Daniel, and it was wonderful, and it really gave us some common understanding of how to use the tools. And so we kind of went through the process in upholding the values of people that are doing the work, that are closest to the work, developing the program offers. So our team is an internal service team, and so we use the tools to explore our purpose and kind of did some brainstorming and Jamboarding, and then the employees on my team wrote the program offer. And so that co-creation process was, I felt, very empowering for our team. And so in doing that, we were able to think through what our investment is in culturally specific services, in racial justice and equity work, And also using the Hemingway app. That was something that we used across our division to look at accessibility of the language that our tool was written in. And in terms of the measures within our program offer, which is 25027, something that we've been measuring for a number of years is percent of employees of color in the division. And we've seen that change in fiscal year 14. It was about 24%, and now it's been steadily increasing. It's at 42%. And also this past year, 60% of promotions went to employees of color. And so those are two kind of primary metrics, as Joy spoke about, an output and an outcome. And so that's a little bit about our specific team program offer. And then within the full division, what our team does is we prepare all of the metrics and also the budget for the division. And so some of the work that we did kind of in moving into that prep, kind of in those three kind of preparation, implementation, and sort of next steps. The preparation, we put together resources and we met with all of the programs across the division. We kind of did a little tour, and we realized that starting early and prompting folks with some of the questions that are in the ODE tool, as well as the kind of DCA example, really helped. And then we would essentially ask folks, who are we serving? Who are we not serving? And that was something that, that question actually was something that Irma brought forward that was new to me. Usually we look at disparities within the populations we're serving, but we started to expand that out and look at census information, look at communities that we may not be serving. And then we gave folks within the program time to kind of think about that. We ran data in a number of different ways, and then came back a month later. So we kind of started this early in November, came back in December with some kind of follow-up questions. And as we kind of moved through that process, we also met with our advisory councils, kind of presented our process, met with Irma presented to the DCHS Seaback. And so we sort of had a thoughtful process where we were kind of combining the equity lens elements of kind of relationship building and technology together to work with programs, and then also to pull the data from our systems to provide the support for programs for decision making. And some of the things that we have implemented as a result of going through this process, we have about now 50 KSAs for either culturally specific or language spoken across the division. 6 of the positions that we put forward that were adopted into the FY23 budget were specific language positions of Cantonese, Somali, Russian, Arabic, and 2 African-American culturally specific outreach positions, as well as a position, a program specialist with our adult protective services area to do outreach to culturally diverse communities. And also in terms of our investment in culturally specific services, as we were looking back through our COVID spending, about $1.2 million of our $1.4 million was invested in culturally specific services. And we, something that our community services area has done is provide kind of a cost split of 38% of funds are invested in culturally specific services, and 62% are within culturally responsive programs. And then for this last year, it was actually about 50-50. And so with the kind of the ways that we looked at our budgeting with support from all as commissioners, we were able to increase our investment in culturally specific services. And so so that's been kind of our path. And some of the things, I guess, lessons learned, and as we're in kind of this next step, was that we realized that we have a number of different kind of disparate data systems. We have some state systems that we use. We've got some internal systems that we use. So we're not collecting data consistently across all of those systems. And so we're performing a kind of a data systems analysis, and we're looking at race, ethnicity, age, gender, language spoken, and kind of assessing whether the fields are in the systems to collect it, whether the data is reportable, so that we can kind of moving into this next year, have information more quickly, so that we can, as we're having conversations, we can provide program folks with information for decision making. So that's an area that we're working on now. So yeah, so that's just a little bit about our journey through budgeting and program offer process.
I think it's really helpful to have this real world, look behind the curtain, look at what we mean when we talk about equity and budgeting. It's, can be a lot of pretty flowery words, but actually putting it into practice is what's so important. And I want to appreciate you, Jake, and your team. I know that this is an issue that it's been a personal one for you for a while. And so hearing what you're doing has been this has been fascinating this morning. So I just want to
Unless there's any questions, we will continue with our journey into our $3.3 billion budget.
Anybody have any questions for folks at this point? All right.
Thank you all very much.
And thank you to Nisha and Alejandro as well. Thanks for all the work that you've done.
That was very exciting. It's the program offers are sometimes I think a flat representation of all the work that we do. And so it's really great to hear from the teams and we get to experience this kind of on a daily basis, but I don't think you all on a daily basis get to experience how committed the organization is to doing this equity work in the budget process. So finding ways to really bring it to life. And I really appreciate Joy and Jacob being able to do that this morning. So we will go back to our regular scheduled program, diving into our $3.3 billion budget. I just want to highlight here some of the policy guidance that we gave the departments when we started the budget process in December. This was kind of a banner year for the county. In the first time since 2016, we were able to issue guidance to the departments that said you do not have to propose reductions, which was, I think, a relief after the COVID work and the kind of the whipsawing of the budgets and what we were seeing, but also meant that sometimes current service level budgets are even harder because that means the departments really have to prioritize within their existing current service levels their priorities first and then bring that thoughtful information to the chair. So while we said no reductions, we also said this is not business as usual. We still want you to be intentional about centering equity into that process and be able to explain that and explain your decision making. The chair was really focused on ensuring that programs were focused on outcomes and the deliveries and the measurables, and also identifying, as Jacob was saying, where those disparities exist and who are we not serving so that we make sure that we're intentional with every dollar. We did ask that any additions to internal services, because we know every time we expand services, it takes a village to do that work. And so we know that we need to also make investments in information technology and facilities and those types of things. But we also wanted to be intentional about spending those dollars. And then finally, we did spend a significant amount of time this year identifying places where the departments did do general fund reallocation. So you saw that as a prominent feature in their transmittal letters that they submitted back in February. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is the second year that I've used this graphic, and at 10 o'clock last night, I was realizing I think I need a new graphic. So next year, hopefully over the summer, my summer project will be develop a new graphic regarding the budget process. Marina, can we make this a little bit larger? Is it possible to put it in? Seems like a little blurry for our audience. There we go. Thank you. So you all are very familiar with this budget process timeline, but I just wanted to go through the highlights very quickly. In November, we start our budget process. Most people in the county will tell you we never stop budgeting, which might be true. But we officially start the process in November when our economist, Jeff Renfro, brings the general fund forecast, which basically starts to set the parameters of how much funding we have to spend, particularly how much kind of flexible general fund spending we have, which then starts to set up the discussion with the chair's office around that policy guidance that we just reviewed. Once we figured that out and we bring that forecast to the board, in December, we do more math. and more math, and we're estimating personnel costs. The Department of County Assets is determining how much it's going to cost to run our internal services and creating those allocations. We're writing the budget manual to kind of marry the numbers with the policy and practice. And then we're also doing trainings, like with our equity trainings, to ensure that the departments have access to all the information they need to develop their budgets. From December to this year, February 18th, the departments are furiously working away at creating those budgets, meeting with the chair's office, meeting with our chief operating officer, meeting with the chair's chief of staff and her policy advisors to get feedback. They're also meeting with the community budget advisory committees and really just incorporating all that work into those program offers that we released on February 18th, which was a late Valentine's gift to me this year. I typically like it right on Valentine's Day, but we couldn't make the calendar work this year. After the departments submit those budgets, which we then post on our website along with the transmittal letters, so that you can kind of get a roadmap from the department to why they made the strategic investments and proposals that they did. From February to May, we are busy again meeting with the departments, really going through all of those proposals, and then working very closely with the chair to craft her budget. As we did last Thursday, we released that budget, the proposed budget, and then you all acting as the budget committee approve that budget, which means we are now moving it into the process of public deliberation. From April to May, where we are today, we're starting to embark on the 6 weeks of board deliberation, work sessions, and public hearings. And then on June 16th, we are scheduled to adopt the budget. I want to remind everybody that we have to adopt a budget by June 30th. If we do not adopt a budget by June 30th, there's a couple of implications. The first is that we can't levy property taxes. And without an adopted budget to put those priorities on, the state of Oregon could come in and reduce our property tax levies. And we also cannot spend any of the funding come July 1st. So we cannot pay our community budget, our community organizations and nonprofits who are running services for us, and we also can't pay our employees. So it's very critical that we meet these timelines.
I love that you're going through that, but have we ever missed the deadline?
We have never
Okay.
missed the deadline. But
we're not going to this year.
Very close.
In a pandemic.
In a pandemic, my first year, it was lovely. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is just a reminder of the 6 weeks of budget deliberations and work sessions and public hearings that are coming up. Every year I see the slide and I think, wow, that is amazing. Who is going to do all that work? And then I realize it's us. We're all going to do all of this work. So I know the departments are working really, really hard on their work session presentations, and we really expanded them for this year. And I think you'll be excited when you see them. As we move into June, our economists will provide an update on our forecast. That'll be kind of the last opportunity we have to make any adjustments to the general fund. And then we'll get into some conversations with the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission, which is always a lovely day to discuss budgets. And then again, after all that hard work, in that 6th week, we will adopt the budget. So if we can go to the next slide, please. I just want to remind everybody that we have 3 virtual public hearings scheduled for the evening sessions, but we also have 3 other opportunities for public comment that are considered kind of public hearings on the budget. So the first was last Thursday when we approved the budget. Then we head into May 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. for one of our first virtual public hearings. And then on May 25th, again from 6 to 8. And then from June 1st, it will be our 3rd hearing. I want to remind anybody who might be listening to this virtually that you can go to www.multco.us/budget-feedback to submit any testimony or to sign up to testify with the board for those community conversations. Also, the tax supervising hearing on June 1st at 9:30 a.m. is also an opportunity for the public to come and testify. And then finally, budget adoption hearing on June 16th is also an opportunity. Also in between then, we have our regular board work sessions where the community can come and testify as well. So if we could go to the next slide, please. As a reminder of what we can do during our budget work sessions here, during any work session, any member of the board can propose an amendment to the budget. You can propose a budget note, or you can ask for additional information and follow-up. Typically, we try to get that follow-up to you within a week. Sometimes the questions are more expansive than the time frame allows, and so we typically ask that those potentially turn into budget notes or scheduled work sessions for post-budget adoption. I want to remind the board that anytime we propose an amendment, the budget that is currently in front of you is balanced. And so in order to consider an amendment, we would either need to find some corresponding, if we were increasing expenditures, we would need to find corresponding revenue to support those expenditures, or we would need to make like reductions somewhere else in expenditures to fund those expenditures. And then finally, just a reminder that budget adoption is more than just the budget that you see in front of you. We also have to levy property taxes. Our chief financial officer will bring our budget and financial policies, which helps sets our framework for how we approach our financial institutions. We will bring our investment policy, fund resolutions, and our salary compensation resolution on that last day. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is a budget presentation. You have to have budget numbers in order to have a budget presentation. It is written into unspoken budget law. So here are some of those numbers. Our budget is the largest, $3.3 billion in this approved budget. That's a growth of $467 million over the fiscal year 2022 adopted budget. Some of that growth were actions that you took mid-year actually for the state rebalance. So we added close to $100 million. I've got that number wrong. That is not the right number. Sorry. We added close to, I believe, $80 million in the state rebalance. Most of that came through DCHS, and you've had those discussions, and then some in our public safety for restoring the Senate Bill 1145 funding that we had lost in the previous biennium. We also saw a significant increase in our beginning working capital, both in preschool for all, because we know that we have to have a revenue smoothing account. When preschool for all comes, they'll talk about those funds for the out years when we're projecting that we will start to lose some funding. So we have to continue to roll over that balance to ensure that that stability is there in that program. We also saw a significant increase in our supportive housing dollars because the first year of the supporting housing measure was also the year that we saw the economy take some significant recession style decreases. And so we had to significantly roll back that funding. So now we're getting back to what we had initially estimated that funding to be. We also have nearly $30 million in there for the next phase of the Burnside Bridge. Those are some examples of what comprises that $467 million. That's a 16.5% increase over the previous year. Last year, this slide was a 37% increase. So combined, we're seeing like significant increases in funding year over year, which I'm not going to complain about, which is very exciting for our community. We're also seeing an increase of almost 410 FTE. I have some slides later in the presentation to break that out. We have $117 million of one-time only funds. A pretty significant portion of that is we talked to you early during the general fund forecast about doing a $25 million per set-aside account. So that would be our fourth set-aside account that really sets us up for financial stability in the future years. So that's included in that $117 million. We also have $5 million built in right now for expanded community capacity building, which we started this year to do that work with our community providers, and an additional new investment of $15 million for emergency strategic capital investments to address homelessness and housing affordability. So those are some exciting components of the one-time only list. And then finally, we are fully funding our reserves and our contingencies, which I will talk about in a moment. we can go to the next slide, please. So our budget highlights, if you can find highlights in a $3.3 billion budget, it's big and it's expansive, but some things that we wanted to focus on were this is the second year of implementing our 3 new voter initiatives and the second year of our American Rescue Plan funding, which we'll talk about. This is, which feels like the first time in a decade of adding and expanded new services. We thought we would have been here 2 years ago with our BIT increase, sans the pandemic. So we've kind of, that timeline got pushed forward a bit. We're continuing $26.6 million of the mid-year business income tax emergency investments that you all worked on so diligently in the fall. A significant portion of that is capital investments that we made that are continuing over into the second year. And then finally, it's an exciting day that we get to include the opening of the Behavioral Health Resource Center coming this fall to this budget. So no longer talking about the capital planning, but moving into actually operationalizing the services at that center. Next slide, please. So a quick look at our revenues as they come into the county. This is a look at all funds, not just the general fund. When we look at all funds, beginning working capital tends to be and has been for the second year our largest source of revenue at $938 million, or about 33% of our total budget. This significant shift to beginning working capital is almost primarily driven by the library bond. So we went and accessed those funds. We put them in the budget, and now we will draw them down over the next 4 years now. So that's why we have such an unusually high amount of beginning working capital. Our intergovernmental revenues, which are revenues like the Metro Supportive Housing services funding that we get from the state, are our second largest source at about $844 million, or 30%. These revenues increased nearly $98 million, or just over 13% increase due to the being able to really meet those initial estimates of the Metro Supportive Housing measure. And then also this is where we include our American Rescue Plan funding in this category of funding. So if we can go to the next slide, please. This beautiful graph here, I have some really talented staff, and we have all new graphs for you this year, which I'm very excited about. So I hope
Not all new. I hit that one that was the same from last year.
not all new. But so I'm really excited about this. So basically this just shows you kind of in total how the funds break out by department. So you can see there that kind of middle light green line is all other funds. The dark blue line is our general fund investment, and then the orange is our American Rescue Plan. When you look at it from an all funds perspective, DCA, or Department of County Assets budget, remains at an elevated level because that's where we're budgeting that library bond. So we, basically doubled DCA's budget last year when we were able to budget for the library bond. The Department of County Management and non-departmental always look disproportionately large because this is where we budget high level kind of countywide corporate commitments like the risk fund in Department of County Management, which occupies $171 million to pay for our health insurance plans. And we also have the PERS bond fund in non-departmental at $55 million. Additionally, non-D includes the $52 million for the library GO bond debt service payments as well. So that tends to distort this look at the budget, and we'll get a more operational look when we get to the general fund slides. If we can go to the next slide, please. Again, just a reminder of all of these beautiful new initiatives that are coming to the county. For this year, for fiscal year 2023, we have $191 million budgeted for preschool for all. That is a combination of the reserve funds that we have for the out years, our contingency funds, and operationalizing, which I hear is going to be 675 slots going into the fall, which is very, very exciting. The supportive housing services measure, we are budgeting $107 million, which also includes some beginning working capital and carryover as well. The library bond includes both the $52 million in premium and the 300, and I'm not going to do this math right, 67 million in the actual building of the new buildings, which is very exciting. And then we have year 2 of our COVID-19 response. This number seems a lot bigger than the kind of 80 million we've been talking about, because that is combined with both the direct allocation that we got from the federal government for Multnomah County, plus there were other revenue sources that came in through that legislation that act more like traditional grants. So this is that combined amount, and we'll break that out as we get further into the presentation. We can go to the next slide, please. So speaking of just the general fund, where we get to a little bit more the decision-making power of this board, the county's general fund, like in previous years, is in bulk made up by about 66% of taxes. And that includes our property taxes, our business income tax, and our motor vehicle rental tax. And as a reminder, Jeff will be here on June 1st, and he will explore those revenue sources in much greater detail. In comparison to when you saw the other funds, beginning working capital is a much distant second in this graphic. It only represents about 20% of our total budget in the general fund. If we can go to the next slide, please. This just gives you a quick look at how that general fund is invested. You'll notice that the 671 million and the number before, which was 742, that's because this is just the operating budgets of the departments, and it doesn't account for any of our contingencies, one-time only investments, some of those things. So that's the difference here. You'll see when you start to look at it this way, the Department of County Assets is now our smallest bar on this chart, and the sheriff's office has moved up as one of the largest investments of general fund, with 23% of the general fund, or about 157 million, going to support those operations. And that's largely because our public safety departments don't have the same access to state funds and federal funds as our health and human services departments do. So if we can go to the next slide, please. This is just to give you a little conceptual of how we've invested the general fund over time by service area. Traditionally, we've defined those service areas as public safety. That would be community justice, the district attorney's office, and the sheriff's office. Health and human services, which is the health department, county human services, the joint office. And we do pull out corrections health and include corrections health in the health and human services section. And then general government, which is your library, non-departmental, county management, and county assets. You can see we've been shifting over time our investments to make them more health and human services centered. And I would also say that if we had more time, we might look at these services even a little bit more in depth to really look at the services provided by community justice, because we know that traditionally those services kind of span between public safety and health and human services, especially with the work that they do in prevention with health specialists and outreach and that type of work. So again, another summer project for my staff, who I'm looking at behind me. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this slide seems very boring. This is the slide that helps myself and Eric Ariano sleep at night. We are fully funded for our reserves at $53.8 million per our policy. That's 10% of our corporate reserves. We also have a general fund contingency of $27.6 million in this budget. That's comprised of our regular contingency, the kind of, oh shoot, we forgot something pot of money, or something is emerging that we really need to address. Traditionally, I think for the last 5 to 6 years, this has been budgeted at $1.5 million. With the inflation that we're seeing and the risk that we're seeing, the chair made the wise investment to increase that to $2 million, and we hope that that kind of becomes the new baseline for that contingency fund. We also put the BIT reserve, although it is a reserve fund, that ends up in our contingency at 10%, because we know that's one of our most volatile revenue sources. And then this year, like last year, we're also continuing to have a COVID-19 financial risk mitigation fund. We really saw this come through for us when we were doing the business grants that we were doing at the beginning of the year with our COVID funding, and we knew we couldn't use any of the COVID funding. It was restricted from paying for any admin costs associated with those nonprofits and those community members. So we were able to take the general fund, braid it with the COVID funding, and really offer those community organizations a robust funding package to push that money out and be able to do that work. We also have three, I think, pretty significant contingency set-asides in the budget this year that are really going to help us bridge into fiscal year 2024. The first is the Behavioral Health Resource Center. We have $2.8 million of one-time only money set aside in contingency currently. That's due to, one, it's a startup program, and we need to ensure that we have right-sized and scoped those services correctly. And then secondly, because we are relying on funding from ballot measure 110 from the state, and we know there have been significant delays in that funding, we want to ensure that we have something to backstop in case something changes with that funding. So we know how critical this program is, we know how important it is, and we wanted to ensure that this budget didn't set us up for success and didn't set us up to immediately have a budget hole as we head into the fall to open that program. We also have $500,000 of one-time only money set aside for the body-worn cameras for the sheriff's office. We need to do some strategic planning with the sheriff around policies, procedures. What does that investment look like, and what could this program look like? So we felt like that would be the opportunity to be able to do that work with that, and then we can make those kind of informed next steps into this program. And then finally, we came to you in the fall when we had our significant amount of one-time only money, and we talked about increasing our reserves by 1%, both in the BIT and the general fund corporate revenues. So this, globally, it would be best practice to be at 15%. We're currently at 10%. This adds just 1% more if we can make that financial change in the budget this year.
I'm glad you meant. Eric really wanted us to get to 15%. So we're moving in that direction.
This is our gift to Eric right here on this slide, as well as him sleeping at night. If we can go to the next slide, please. As promised, we're going to take some quick looks at those new investments in 410 FTE across the county. So I really like this graph. I like the way Aaron in our office set this up. So you can see the dips is red when we were losing FTE, and then you can see as we're increasing, they shade to green. The county is adding more than 1,000 FTE as compared to fiscal year 2015. In the last few years, we've been hovering around 5,200 FTE, and this year we've had that chance to really make some significant growth in those services and the FTE. And I'm going to go to the next slides, and we're going to take some slices at this. I also want to remind everybody that when the departments come, they're going to be providing you much more detailed information about the staff, the work that they're doing, the new programs that we're investing in. And we just don't have the time this morning to delve that deeply, but we'll start to give you some ideas of what these different types of FTE look like. If we go to the next slide, please. So here's that same graphic by departments. As I think you would have suspected or would have guessed, that you really see the increases concentrated in the health department, our county human services, and community justice, and also the joint office with the addition of the Metro Supportive Housing Measure. One key piece of what's happening with the health department is that we started investing in limited duration staff when COVID kicked off back in March of 2020 with the CARES funding and then the American Rescue Plan funding. Because that funding is not ongoing funding, while it spans a couple of fiscal years, it's not meant to be like an ongoing grant or a source of funding. We started those positions as limited duration assignments because that's how we follow our financial policies. Because of our agreements with the unions, we are now beyond the 2-year scope for many of those LDAs. So in this budget, we took time with the departments to really identify which positions needed to be converted to full-time FTE per those agreements. About, I believe it's 45 of the FTE in the health department are just a conversion. So they're not new staff or new staff coming on, but just a conversion of those LDAs. Additionally, the health department saw increases in the clinical system and then adding new programs in the general fund. So, and then public health modernization. So there's a big collective investment in our health systems in this budget. For county human services, 98 of those FTE of the 144, which is about 70%, are from our mid-year actions that we took when the state increased funding for aging and IDD. So they'll talk about that when we get there. This is not something new. You approved those actions. And so now we're just actually formalizing those FTE in the budget. And then our community justice has that same, they formalized about 11 FTE in their state mid-year rebalance as well. If we can go to the next slide. So this just gives a breakout. We provide this breakout every year of represented and non-represented staff, or exempt and represented. What you see here is our percentage about holding steady from fiscal year 2022 to 23, with close to 83% of our staff being represented and about 17% being exempt. I think it's important to remember that exempt includes not just managers, but also it includes elected officials or staff assistants or other classifications of staff that don't hold a management role. So for instance, my budget analysts are exempt because of the work that they do around labor negotiations and those types of things. We really need to have, those positions can't be embedded in those bargaining units because of that work. A lot of our HR staff are also classified in that way. So they're classified as exempt, but they're not doing traditional management work. If we can go to the next slide, please. So here you see the breakout of our 5,688 FTE by bargaining unit. ASME is by far our largest bargaining unit, representing just over, oh, I missed my talking points on this one. My apologies. I was going to slide through this one and go to the next one, please. These are the right talking points. So here you can see this is the growth by bargaining unit from fiscal year 22 to 23. You can see that of the 410 FTE, 310 were in local 88, representing about 81% of the new FTE. And then you see the breakouts as we go down. The next largest category is management, but only representing about 76 FTE. I'd like to also highlight towards the bottom, you start to see some orange, some small orange shades there. What happened here was that although we were in a current service level budget and we did not anticipate having to make any reductions because of the general fund, we don't get to control other funds and how our jurisdictions partner with us. So in the sheriff's office, you see there that there were some reductions in our school district contracting and our contracting with our metro with our detectives unit. So there were some small reductions to those bargaining units that were slightly offset with new investments of general fund. And then finally, at the bottom, you see there the integrated clinical system is realigning its work in our dental clinics. And when they come and speak to you, they're going to talk about what shifts and changes they had to make to those FTE. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is just a quick reminder of how we spend our funds. This graph shows you from 2012 to 2021, our actual spend. And then in 22 and 23, because we haven't closed those years out yet or spent anything in 23, the adopted budget. So you can see that our largest driver category is personnel services. So that is our full-time FTE, our on-call, our temp, our overtime, all of those related to our employees and the people who do the work on the ground every single day. One shift I would like to point out is that capital has traditionally hovered very low. But with the addition of the library bond and some other efforts, you can see that that has really grown to our third largest category. If we can go to our next slide, please. One thing we like to demonstrate to you every year is the investments that we make in our employees are not just their salaries, but also our benefits and insurance that we offer to those employees. And so what you can see here is that when we start to include our PERS and our FICA and our health insurance, if you look back to 2015, that cost was approximately $4,200 per employee. And now that cost has grown, almost increased by 42% since then to $59,000 per average employee. The 23 budget includes our fifth, did I say fourth earlier? Our fifth PERS side account. I apologize for that error, which will provide us with ongoing savings. And this, along with our PERS reform measures, means that our PERS rates have likely topped out, so that PERS rate increases will no longer be a significant driver of our budget deficits. And so this will
And
be
that's pretty amazing. I know we can't just skim over that. Not only, I mean, we are alone in the state, I would imagine. I'm just going to take a wild guess. Hearing other communities, whether it's school districts or counties or cities, who are spending an inordinate proportion of their budgets on PERS. I have to say, this is a huge kudos to our team for working really hard for years and years to get us to this point. So thank you.
And thank you to you all for, helping us get there. It's not easy to take that dollar and put it into those kinds of investments, especially when we know how much need is out in our community. And so balancing that is a big effort on the board's part and the leadership by the chair. And so I know Eric really should be sitting here taking credit for this. So I just get to be the messenger here. So thank you very much.
And we'll give a shout out to Mark Campbell. I know he's listening right now.
If he's not, I'm going to be really disappointed. If we can go to our next slide, please. This is just a reminder, when I started with the county, which was in 2002, by the way, this graph looked much different. And really what you saw was that the significant majority of our employees were tier 1 employees, about 35%. That has shifted now with the PERS reforms and the work that's been done at the state, that tier 1 employees now make up 8%. I think Mark Campbell, speaking of Mark Campbell, used to talk about them graduating. So this is where we see graduating from our different PERS tiers. And we'll continue to see long-term savings at the county and be able to reinvest those dollars into services as we move forward. We can go to the next slide, please. This is just a reminder of the number that I couldn't for the life of me get right earlier. So apologies about the state funding that we invested mid-year. Because that was a mid-year action and because all of the documents that we provide you are adopted to propose or adopted to adopted, these types of actions don't get incorporated into the budget. So some of those big jumps that you're seeing are actions that you already took during the mid-year. And I'm going to pause, and I see my budget bestie has come up, and I'm so excited. And we are, this is kind of the end of kind of the formal budget overview with the big budget numbers. So I'd like to pause here for any questions, and then we're going to move into the significant investment of our American Rescue Plan funding.
Well, thank you. And also, as you said several times during your presentation, a lot of these slides will go into much more details with the departments individually. But if folks have questions about kind of the overall highlights that Christian has gone over. Commissioner Myron, do you have any questions?
Thank you, though.
Commissioner Jaipal.
I don't. It's just, which is a tribute to how clear that presentation was. Well, actually, I have one small question for later, not for now. I'm just curious about, I forget which chart it was, but the one that showed percentage of contract versus percentage of internally provided services or employees. I'm not sure what the exact metric was. Could you show the percentage change in that ratio over time? Thank you.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, I just have to say, I love how you're presenting the information this session. I don't know if it's significantly different, but I think the slides and the charts are extremely clear. I really appreciate that. And this is also a question you don't have to answer right now, but we've had such good news just in terms of the size of the budget this year. But I'm also curious, as we're looking at fiscal year 24, we know some of these funds are going to be ending. Some of them are not. Some of them will be continuing. So I'm just curious about what the drop off we're thinking about for next year as well.
Thank you. I think when we come back and talk about the general fund forecast, we can incorporate some of that. It's not going to be a surprise when we talk about our American Rescue Plan funds, that those funds are slated to expire in December of 2024. This budget starts to do some of that work of picking up some of those critical investments, and we can give you kind of a cheat sheet to that, to move them into the general fund to ensure that they will extend beyond the American Rescue Plan. And we've also tried to be really, really intentional about how we make those investments in the American Rescue Plan. Critical services, community needs right now, and potentially with the concept that we can start ramping those down in some areas. Also knowing that we're facing some brighter years in the forecast, so we'll be able to make some of those adjustments. We anticipate that we will have some final kind of one-time only money in that last 6 months of fiscal year 2024 to also give us some space to ramp down some of those programs, or to figure out ways to continue those investments for maybe one more year.
Great, thank you. Look forward to that.
Commissioner, you pointed out the thing that keeps me up at night,
Yeah.
actually.
Many times during this budget did I say out loud, I do not want those commissioners sitting in that boardroom next year and the year after saying, damn, Chair Kafori, it's all her fault. So we were very intentional about ensuring that.
We appreciate that, Chair. Thank you.
That's why I'm going to be doing a lot of like patting myself on the back so much. So just get used to it.
As you should. No question. Well, actually, one question. I was surprised to see, pleasantly, I guess, benefits and insurance for cost per full-time employees, like 59,000, which is, but I was wondering like what the high and the low range, because this is the average. And I think the average is like 59,000, which is great because it says that we're paying our employees with good benefits. But that seemed like a really high number to me.
Yeah, one thing, I can't answer that question right off, and I always counsel people, don't answer something that you can't actually answer. So we can get you kind of that breakout. But one thing that we've done at the county that I think is really important is that when we budget for a position, we don't think about it as that individual employee. And I'm going to give you a really good example. I know in other jurisdictions, what they do is they say, okay, you have this position and this employee in it. That employee is single, so you only need to budget for a single plan, an insurance plan. And then they give that department that budget. Well, what happens when that employee decides that they don't want to work there anymore, and you want to hire a new employee who maybe needs a family plan? I've heard of other jurisdictions where they can't hire people because they don't have enough funding in their budget to accommodate that shift in those changes or in those plan changes. So what we've said at the county is we're going to use an average plan rate with every position that we budget so that our departments have the flexibility to hire the right person to do the job. And so that's why we talk about that in averages, and why we made that switch. I want to say we made that switch 20 years ago, because our departments were struggling so deeply with the position costs being mirrored to the employee themselves and the attributes of that employee. And so we've really found that that's a way to give them that flexibility to do the right hiring. But we can get you that other information.
No, that's really helpful, Christian, to think. I mean, because I think like when is it true that you just kind of a rule of thumb that you use like 50% of their salary? Like if somebody was hired at 50,000, that really the cost would be like 75,000. And so I'm just trying to, is that kind of accurate?
When I do this.
But I mean, it's helpful, to do quick calculations in our heads. But, again, I echo my fellow commissioners is that I always tell people when we're communicating to folks to write at a 5th grade level so that I can understand it. But, I think you did, a marvelous job of taking something very, very complex and communicating it really concisely and really clearly. And that's helpful because these meetings, I know we're going to dive deep, but it's just so pleasant to hear and to be able to wrap my head easily around the concepts and just the examples that our other presenters, like Chair Kafori said, like, we hear these larger ideas or policies, but it's always great to see the example of how it actually plays out in a program offer. So thank you.
Thank you. If we can go to the next,
Budget bestie.
my budget bestie. I'm just going to quickly remind everybody, you've seen this slide before. This is the direct allocations that came to the state of Oregon with almost $4.1 billion with a B. Every time I try to do the billion math, I get it wrong because I don't put enough zeros in there. It's a lot of zeros. The state of Oregon received 2.56 billion. The city of Portland received 217 million. I believe they budgeted about 110, so they've split that in the upcoming mayor's budget. The county received 157 million, again, of that direct allocation. We worked furiously and budgeted our first half of that in fiscal year 2022 with the plan to budget the second half in 2023, which is what we're going to talk about to you this morning. I can say we were one of the only jurisdictions in Oregon that actually had a full budget plan in our budget document for the ARP allocation. And I am very, very proud of that. And that has a lot to do with this person who is sitting to my left, Kim Milton. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Kim Melton. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm Chief of Staff in the Chair's office. And I get to talk to you a little bit about our approach to the second year of the American Rescue Plan funds. Next slide, please. And I wanted to start by kind of grounding us again in the guiding principles and also calling out some places where we made some adjustments and changes to those principles for FY23. I think we know that the guiding principles have been sort of a foundation that's been kind of a North Star for us to create proposals. It's been a grounding force and rooted really a lot of our work and investments from the outset in 2020. And we used them for our reopening framework. We used them for our BIPOC plan when we were developing strategies around contact tracing and testing. And we also used them sort of additionally when we started developing our vaccine equity approaches in terms of how we were implementing those dollars and how we were reaching our community. And then we also developed and sort of coalesced these into guiding principles when we started with the first year of the American Rescue Plan. And we've kept up that model. And I think in many ways, and has been mentioned before, we believe in doing and approaching the work this way. We are grounded in a way that allows our investments to have something to hinge off of, something that is really an anchor so that the investments can really be both explained to our community effectively and reasonably, but also that folks know where we're coming from and what our approach is, and we have something to measure ourselves against. So I'll just sort of highlight kind of what they are and how we moved through them. We talked about inclusively leading with race here, and we know that that's one both in an approach of looking at how the work that we're going to do is going to specifically impact Black, Indigenous, and people of color who have been most heavily impacted by COVID-19, and how will we honor the wisdom that comes from community and also approach co-creation. We also use an equity and racial justice lens, and as you heard from my colleagues in the Office of Diversity and Equity, we believe that then taking this lens allows us to tap into intersectionality, allows us to not just talk about the equality of access, but really equitable access that allows us to address disproportionate historic and current harms and burdens. And I think thirdly, we talked about really listening to the community and really engaging as we go through both our clients, our community, those who make use of our services, and also the advocates and partners and stakeholders in our community who help give us insight and input on how our work is impacting and really making a difference. Next slide, please. We also talked about embedding a public health approach. And this was something that we talked a lot about early on in the pandemic, is how can we use some of the great tools and some of the great models around the approach to public health and use that as we're approaching the COVID-19 response. That allows us to think individually, allows us to think at a community level, and also at a population level. So we're thinking about our resources and our investments in multiple layers, and both in depth and also broadly. And this year, we added an additional guiding principle, and that's really kind of talking about the way that we can pay attention to and learn from both the experiences of our clients and community members, and also look at best practices and outcome and progress indicators. Because what we know is that now we've been able to gather a little bit of additional information that helps us understand where are we seeing promising practices that are having the impact that we want to see. How are we hearing from our community about what the impact of those services has been and what changes or modifications can be made? And also, it allows us to really state, I think, intentionally, throughout this pandemic, we've had conversations about the limits and also the benefits of data. And our EPI teams, both during the pandemic, have spent a lot of time with other data experts and epidemiologists in our community talking about the need to really decolonize data and to look at what it limits us to see, and then how can we intentionally approach our work by looking at data differently. And this allows us to both ground that and put that here into our guiding principles is something that we're looking at. And it's something that public health has spent quite a bit of time looking at as they have been assessing the efficacy of the services that they've been deploying over the past 2 years. And then finally, always kind of knowing that partnerships allow us to be most efficient in the way that we are deploying our services and our dollars, both with our state and local and regional partners, as well as with the community-based organizations and community leaders without whom we cannot do this work. That has become more critical than ever, that we have those strong partnerships in order to impact our community the way that we envision. And I want to just take a minute to appreciate the Community Involvement Committee. They invited me to come and meet with them in November, where I had a chance to walk through both the priorities that we had in FY22 and our investments. And we had an engaging conversation about what those priorities and guiding principles mean to them, how they've seen it play out in the community, and what changes and what ideas they might have as to how we could improve and further refine these principles. So I appreciate their input. I also appreciate the input of your staff. In December and January, I had a chance to share the updated drafts of these guiding principles with the chiefs, and to be able to get input about where those priorities and principles resonate with each of your offices and your goals as well. Next slide, please. And with all of that, this brings us back to sort of our priority buckets. I think there's always an opportunity where we can look and place our investments in lots of different buckets in lots of different ways. We really believe that the way that we have drafted these priorities in FY22 with American Rescue Plan, we wanted to hold with those priorities. So what you see before you are the same buckets that you saw in FY22. And then you'll see as we get further into the departmental presentations, how the amount of dollars in those buckets has shifted, and some of the services that are continuing versus things that are new or things that have been shifted to the general fund. But we still believe that these are at their core still the most important ways that we could talk about and reflect the COVID-19 response, starting with the public health emergency response. And that money still in many ways reflects what you see there: testing, contact tracing, outbreaks. While the scale and scope of some of that has shifted, it continues to be a need, and will be one that we'll have to continue to determine how to meet going forward, even beyond the ARP. And I think the core services supporting people in our care, that's really where we have continued to represent both our specific additional investments that support shelter, that support jails, that support juvenile detention, and where we have needed both additional space for physical distancing or needed additional specific investments to help ensure that the people who we are sheltering and who kind of make their home and residence with us have the supports they need. The crisis response and community recovery bucket, that is one that has been pretty hefty, and it can include a very broad range of services. And you'll see that even more so in fiscal year 23, that's the case. Here we are seeing both services that allow us to respond to crisis, but are also built around how can we invest in our community's recovery, both with individual-based services, community services that can build strength and resilience, and also larger population-based services that could impact or that anyone in our community could take advantage of. You'll see housing stability and eviction prevention, wraparound supports for youth and families, community violence investments, safety net services in the realm of behavioral health and domestic and sexual violence, as well as disease prevention and surveillance, and as well as some community asset building. The fourth bucket is the teeniest because, as you have heard, we have been able to really stabilize many of our core county services. And so the restoring services impacted by budget reductions, we have a very tiny amount of money that's still going into that. I believe under 200,000 out of the large over 80 million that we're investing. And then fifth, but never least, critical county infrastructure, because in order for us to serve our community well, we know that we need both the technology and other facility improvements that allow us to do that work. So that really reflects the core county priorities that you'll see reflected in the department presentations over the next 4 or 5 weeks. Next slide, please. And then I think finally for me, I just wanted to highlight a couple of pieces around the approach to the second year of the American Rescue Plan in terms of some shifts in our thinking that guided our investments. First, we're seeing sort of a new season of this pandemic response, and that's where we speak to the scale of vaccine investments or testing or wraparound that at the earlier outset really made up more than almost 2/3 of our investments. Both the scale of those investments is far down, in part because we're seeing much greater community-wide access, and also we have successfully reached a lot of our community through vaccine and other supports. And so you'll see that scaled down. But what we also have heard from our community, particularly from our communities of color, is that there are differing paces of change in our community and comfort with the changes that are really quickly happening in our community, whether they be about masking or social distancing. So there are still investments here, ones that are specifically targeting areas where we know that there's increased vulnerability around COVID-19 and for communities of color who believe that there's additional services and supports they need. I think we're also seeing that the community recovery area, we're seeing that pandemic impacts continue to deepen, and our specific areas of focus, whether that's community violence or housing stability, and they're also broad. So we're seeing them in our schools, we're seeing them across many of our populations. And so that bucket of investments has really increased greatly in FY23 as we sort of endeavor to meet those deepening needs. And then I think thirdly, we've tried to learn lessons about how we have invested our dollars, both around the challenges that can come in ramping up, particularly when you're trying to deploy hundreds of millions of new dollars in the field, and a community where we're both also, everyone is experiencing both delays in hiring or people who are looking for other new opportunities. And that challenge has both impacted Multnomah County as well as all of our hundreds of community partners, and how we can be creative in the ways we think about that, how we can incentivize, how we can support and create the kind of work climates that people want to step into. And then also where we've looked at some promising practices and used some creativity in doing some things differently, then that means looking at the ways we could work through our procurements and contracting, the ways in which we could partner with new and different organizations and use other ways of building up our assets and building up our services. And then I think also this dual focus on crisis response and transformation. I will say, when we met with the community involvement committee twice, they were very clear that we want to see you responding to the crisis, but we want you to be able to point to things that are going to be lasting, things that are going to make a difference, things that are going to help shift the ways, the balances of power, the strength and resilience in our community, that what you're investing in is both for today, but it needs to also be for tomorrow. And so I think we heard that, and we tried to reflect that very clearly in our investments for the ARP. And then you'll see up there, right, brand new, our multco.us/ARP. We have been able to both create a landing page where you can see the FY22 investments. And once we adopt our budget, FY23 investments will also be up there. And much like we've done with some of our Justice Agenda efforts, like with Reimagine Oregon, having a landing place where anyone in our community can go and see what we've invested in. And as we go through and hear from departments over the next several weeks, being able to update that information with impacts and progress indicators will also be another asset that we believe will be of a great benefit to our community and help us tell the story of what we've done with this really critical set of dollars. And with that, I am complete. Thank you, Christian. And I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Anybody have questions on the ARP? All right, thanks. Very thorough. He needs a budget bestie.
I do. I need a friend. We could go to the next slide, please. I'll try to work quickly. I know we're getting short on time here. I just wanted to highlight, this is some data that I pulled down from the National Association of Counties Organization, or NACO. What they did was they hired some analysts and they went in and looked at all budgets over 250,000 people, the jurisdictions, cities, counties, and local governments, and they started to compile them in their own database. So this does not match our priorities. I want to point that out that Kim just talked about. They created their own categories of priorities, and then they started to put the information into this database and then kind of push it back out in these reports. And one thing, when I started to look at how Multnomah County kind of stacked up or compared to the organizations that they were looking at, in this first column on the left, you have the total number of local governments that they looked at. In the middle, what that is a county average. So there were 99 counties that met their criteria that they could actually find budget information on. And then all the way to the right is Multnomah County. And so that big box in red up there shows you which something that I think we should all be particularly proud of, is that most organizations took about 50% of the funding and they either backfilled lost revenue in existing operations, in existing services, or and that's at about 37%, or another 12% of them took the funding and invested it in infrastructure. And I had to go in and dig into that, because I was like, what infrastructure are we talking about here? Because we might think of infrastructure differently, but we're talking about sewer and water, public space, broadband, roadways, green infrastructure, cybersecurity. So really kind of those traditional components of, and then you see on the right that Multnomah County, based on these priorities that Kim just talked about, based on the principles that ground the work that we do every day and our commitments to our communities, we didn't spend any of those dollars in those categories. And while we do have some that we call critical infrastructure, their analysis did not deem that as critical infrastructure. They saw that as support for what you see in the bottom box in the purple there as public health infrastructure and supporting the pandemic response. So I put the website on here so you can go and make that look at those reports if you want to. I would also like to point out that Commissioner Stegman invited me to do a NACO presentation, I believe about a year ago, or maybe it was in right after we adopted the budget. And the thing that struck me the most is that I presented, our fiscal year investments and our ARP plan and our guiding principles and priorities. And then directly after me came someone from the East Coast that was representing a big city. And they were talking about making these investments to shore up hundreds of police officers and park deficits where they couldn't finish construction projects and those types of things. And I really was so proud in that moment to represent Multnomah County, because not only were we responding to the pandemic, acting as the local public health authority, but also recognizing the deep disparities in our community and what was happening on the ground, and that those dollars needed to make those investments there, but also recognizing that in 2 years, we were not going to be presented with this massive fiscal cliff, that we had no alternate revenue source to help figure out how to restore those services. So I really feel like we collectively, and the chair and the board and Kim's leadership have put us in a position where we can proudly enter into fiscal year 2024. If we can go to the next slide, please. Sorry. So just quickly, this is a lovely pie chart of those priorities for the fiscal year 2023 investments. This is the entire $153.6 million, again, including those other ARP funds that come to the county. In a moment, I'll show you a pie chart that represents just the Multnomah County direct allocation. But as you can see, as Kim identified, the crisis response and community recovery is occupying about 50% of all that total funding. That includes a significant amount of rent assistance, almost $47 million in total of both county ARP and then funds that we're receiving both from the feds, the state, and other jurisdictions to help support that ongoing need for rent assistance and housing stability. If we can go to the next slide, please. This is the same funding, just looking at it by department. And as you would suspect, our largest investments are in our health and human services areas, with smaller investments as we go down to public safety and then to those kind of critical infrastructure investments. We can go to the next slide. This pie chart is now just focusing on the direct MOLCO allocation of ARP. I want to point out that it's more than $78.9 million, which is our second allocation that we're going to get from the feds. And that's due to the fact that the ramping up, the piloting, the kicking off programs in implementing 3 new voter initiatives and doing all of the regular work of the county, there is just some delays that happen that are natural and that couldn't be avoided. And so what we're estimating is we're going to have $10 million of underspending in the current fiscal year of our ARP allocation that we've rolled over into fiscal year 2023 to help make those significant investments. One of the pieces that we've been able to do is last year we really relied on the state for our rent assistance allocations. And the chair's budget has $23 million of the Multnomah County ARP allocation dedicated to rent assistance and the support services that our community needs to keep them safely in housing. So that is a significant change and I think an exciting change for our community. Finally, I'm going to go to our summary slide. Here is the ARP by department. I forgot we inserted 2 slides this morning. So here you can see that allocation by department. Sorry, Chair.
I just wanted to clarify something that I know you know, but just for the public consumption. When you talk about public safety, I think we need to have a broader vision of public safety. And I would argue that the human services and the health investments that we made are all a critical piece of our public safety as people who are not housed, do not have enough food on the table, who don't have the, kids with the enrichment programs that we developed and we ran during COVID, mental health services, all of those do play a really important role in our public safety.
Thank you, Chair. And we should clarify, and I apologize for the time constraint, that a lot of those investments are that what we talked about, like with community justice, the social services side of our public safety departments, because we know that our public safety departments are much broader than as you just explained. So thank you, Chair. Here's those same allocations by department. And then if we can go to the next slide, we made one final last slide to combine them both so you can see which departments are receiving kind of infusions of state, federal, and other ARP coupled and braided with the MOLCO ARP to really get us the best outcomes for our community. And we were very intentional about where other people were putting dollars so that we could make sure that we were getting the best results that we could for every dollar that we were investing in our ARP funds. And then finally, I won't read the summary slide, but this was the hardest slide to write out of the entire slide deck because putting your arms around $3.3 billion is no easy task, but I think the work that the chair and her staff have done to ensure that our new investments are responding to our emerging community needs, that we are focusing on addressing inequitable health and economic outcomes with our COVID-19 and recognizing that those will extend beyond the reach of our American Rescue Plan funding, continuing our voter-approved initiatives, using our one-time only resources wisely to invest in capital like our facilities and IT, or to make investments like a per site account to ensure that our fiscal stability into the future, and then just maintaining our flexibility so that we can respond like we did previously in 2020 when we have threats of an economic downturn or we have an increased or heightened pandemic response that needs to be addressed. So thank you very much for listening to me this morning.
All right, questions for Christian or for Kim before we move on to the next budget presentation? Commissioner Stigman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Christian and Kim. I appreciate you bringing up the NACO presentation because, when we were in the midst of COVID and all this money was coming, I did notice that other counties, I was like, what? Like, you already had it like budgeted, allocated, And other counties were just scrambling, trying to figure out, they were asking what and how are we going to spend this money? When you were well past that. So I really appreciate that and highlighting how we spent the money. And I think that we spent it appropriately and correctly and based on our values of serving people in the midst of a crisis in a pandemic. So not only was it just good basic, budgeting principles, it was the right thing to do. And we talk about our budget being a moral document. And I think that this is just another example of how you all have made this document a moral document and really put the money into the people that were the most marginalized and had the greatest need. And so for all of that hard work, I want to thank all of our employees and our chair and budget and finance folks for really leading with your hearts and putting your money where your mouth is. So thank you. Well done.
Commissioner Beckett Peterson?
Just like very deep appreciation for setting us up to have this really important discussion about our budget, about how we're going to be spending the ARPA dollars for this next cycle. I'm, looking forward to the next 6 weeks where we're going to really be digging into this stuff, but I just appreciate all the work that has gotten us there and really helping us make these, consider these things and making these decisions in front of us. So thank you. And to all your teams as well.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Ditto. This is just such a great setup for what we're going to dig into for the next 6 weeks, the framework and the laying out of the general principles. Just so useful and so well done. If I had to pull one thing out, and it's something that you highlighted, Kim, in terms of our approach to the ARP spending, which I think actually mirrors our approach, the approach you've all taken to the whole budget, which is crisis response and transformation. I mean, I think that that's a key theme coming out of the pandemic, that we have to do both. And I'm just so excited about the way that we've approached that. Thank you.
Commissioner Myron?
A brilliant presentation. I echo all of these lovely words of my fellow commissioners, and great start to the deep dive. Thanks so much. I mean, the incredible work.
I was also struck by how much the Central Seaback's vision values align with what we've proposed. And I think that bodes well for our community as we go forward. I feel like there's alignment, and that's obviously very important. So thank you. Before we move to our next presentation, which is from the Department of County Management, we're going to take a 5-minute break so we can stretch our legs and get a drink of water, whatever. So we will be back here at 11:05. Welcome, Serena Cruz, our COO and team, to talk about DCM budget.
Thanks so much, Chair Kafori. Commissioners, as you just said, I'm Serena Cruz. I am the County's Chief Operating Officer and also the Department Director for the Department of County Management. I'm honored to be joining Moses Ross, our Seaback co-chair, Travis Graves, our Deputy COO, Christian Elkin, our Budget Director, Eric Ariano, our Tax Assessor, and Eric Ariano, our Chief Financial Officer. I think I might just need to go out, come back in, and we'll see how we're going to do here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We're here to present the Department of County Management's budget, and we're very excited about that. The Department of County Management is here to support the county through emergent events, COVID-19 surges, and to provide the stage and backdrop for our next normal. As we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, we will support the county in its transition from an organization in crisis mode to an organization that meets the future needs of our community. Before we launch into our formal presentation, I wanted to share a few slides that reflect some of the stories that we've been a part of in this past year. So next slide, please. Being here for you in a crisis looked different across county departments. For DCM, it meant rethinking our work. One example is depicted in this photo. The Division of Assessment, Taxation, The Division of Assessment, Recording, and Taxation redesigned their processes to keep business moving forward. Even though we were closed to in-person services for the majority of the time from March 2020 through June of 2021, we continued to provide marriage licenses, offered video meetings and inspections for property owners and folks wanting to engage with property appraisers. We began development of digital research room, allowing customers remote access to recording information, including certified copies. Though we kept this infrastructure intact throughout the pandemic, we also recognized the value of in-person accessibility. We took the steps to reopen in-person nearly a year ago as one of the earliest service areas at the county to do so. Next slide, please. This photo shows finance staff making gift card distribution possible. Our finance division made exceptions to normal policy standards to authorize the mailing of gift cards to assist high needs members of our community. We also set up short-term contracts with community partners to distribute these cards on our behalf. We provided case-by-case exceptions to our $50 card limit to deliver much needed and enhanced client assistance to the community, including food assistance, clothing, or other basic needs. Our county treasury supported departments across the county in the planning, purchase, and distribution of over 94,000 gift cards to those affected by the pandemic, kind of making Christian's and Kim's presentation about ARP to life, what it took. Next slide, please. Yet in the midst of this pandemic, we never stopped looking toward the future. What does it look like to navigate the challenges and opportunities that a mixed telework and in-person workforce provides? Central Human Resources is leading the county-wide Future of Work initiative, empowering our organization to support a workforce that includes on-site, hybrid, and fully remote workers. The county was the first local government in our region to implement teleworking policies and procedures and to navigate the return to the office for many workers. As we launch into this presentation of our budget, we wanted to show you a bit of what our work looked like during this challenging time. Next slide, please. So the agenda is pretty straightforward. We'll start off discussing the Seaback's presentation, and then equity with WESP, the budget by division, new and one-time only, and backfill general fund, which isn't a big deal for us, and then how we implemented the ARP funds. So we will kick it off. Well, before I hand it off to you, Moses, I still have one more slide. Next slide. So really quickly, this organizational chart gives you a brief image of who we are at the Department of County Management. We're responsible for collecting, protecting, and investing in Multnomah County's human and financial capital. We manage and train the county's workforce, pay the county's bills, and safeguard its funds. Finance and Risk Management, Central Human Resources, and the Central Budget Office work with the chair, chief operating officer, and departments to set county-wide policies that protect county assets, reduce financial risk, and ensure the county's ability to serve the community. The DART maintains property records and assessments and collects property taxes, the primary source of general fund revenue. Each of our division leaders looks forward to presenting their budgets to you today as we hear from the DCM Community Budget Advisory Committee co-chair, Moses Ross. We very much appreciate your leadership and the service of Seaback Advisory Committee members. Now to you.
Thank you. Chair Kafori, commissioners, thank you very much for your time today. My name is Moses Ross. I'm co-chair of the Department of County Management Community Budget Advisory Committee. My co-chair is Karen Williams, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the other members of the committee, Nick Perlowski, Heather Berry, Kent Zook, Shawnee Harris-Bagwell, and Ben Brady. This morning, I will be focusing on, of course, on the DCM side of our review, of our assessment. The DCA side of that will be made at tomorrow's presentation. Our County Budget Advisory Committee members really appreciate the opportunity to review and comment on the fiscal year 22-23 budget priorities for the DCM department. The perspectives we bring come from our lived experiences professions, education, and our community work. And this year's members' background included financial services, engineering, nonprofit work, retail and customer service, business ownership, public service, consulting and advocacy. The common thread here is that we all share a common desire to give back to our community and to ensure fiscal responsibility and the fiscal responsible use of our tax dollars. So at the chair's recommendation, our final report will focus on program offers that align best with our key values and principles. The Seaback believes that each of the items below is important to strive for, and they are not in a particular order. We feel it's important to acknowledge systemic racism in government institutions and work to dismantle oppressive systems founded on white supremacy, for being good stewards of our public funds, for holding government institutions accountable, for providing cost-effective, efficient services with measurable outcomes, viewing budgets as moral documents and commitments to the most vulnerable members of our community, supporting continual improvements towards county workforce equity, including employee health, safety, and well-being. And finally, supporting transparency by making information about DCM budgets accessible and understandable to the general public. So we focused our review on one-time only funding requests, out-of-target program offers, and new programs. This year, we interviewed department directors, reviewed program offers for DCM, and provided our input on those that stood out in terms of cost, impact, or relative merit. And this year we did not focus on allocated costs. And this year was unusual in that the chair did not constrain department budgets. The county was in a better position financially than in recent years, thanks to the federal American Rescue Plan funding and increased revenues from the business tax. So this committee recommends prioritizing the program offers that address the high workforce vacancy rate, worker safety, procurement, and contracting efficiencies, disadvantaged contractor capacity building, and deferred facilities maintenance. So we began the year with DCM, and please go to slide 3, the next slide. Okay. Actually, I got ahead of myself. The slides got ahead of me. Yeah, we're back. Pardon me, we're on the process part of it. That would be slide 3. Thank you. The Seaback began the year with DCM staff and management reviewing outcomes from fiscal 21-22, particularly results from programs that we had recommended prioritizing last year, such as the College to County Intern Program, a new human resources communication position, hiring a digital access coordinator, and 3 information technology upgrade projects. And we were pleased to learn that these programs had been implemented successfully. So to prepare for this year's meeting, we submitted questions to county leaders, asking them to describe outcomes and challenges from the current fiscal year and priorities for the coming fiscal year. And the majority of those interviews occurred prior to fiscal year 22-23 budget submissions. The team met with the following county leaders: Serena Cruz, Tracy Massey, CIO, Travis Graves, Deputy COO, Dan Zalco, and Estelle Norris, DCM Equity Manager, Eric Ariano, Chief Financial Officer, Shelley Kent, Interim HR Director, and Barry Smith, Central Purchasing Manager. Several themes emerged from our discussions with the county leaders. We heard that COVID pandemic response continued to challenge the county's system and workforce. Departments were in their second year of embedding workforce equity strategic plan elements into budget preparation, conducting training, and looking to next turn an equity lens on developing performance measures. As some capital projects were due to wrap up, such as the Behavioral Health Resource Center, planning for others, such as the Gresham Flagship Library and Earthquake-Ready Burnside Bridge, was just beginning. So other themes that we heard across multiple presentations: the county is experiencing a serious labor shortage, up to a 10% vacancy rate. Several program offers would respond to DCM needs to expand recruitment, engage in succession planning, and improve agility and responsiveness to other departments. 2, or B, the county is making efforts to improve racial equity in contracting through use of the Construction Diversity Equity Fund, building capacity and outreach to businesses owned by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, beyond those businesses registered with the State Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity. C, COVID delayed information technology improvements, and in the last several years, staffing reductions have led to slow response times in procurement and in contracting. This is doubly problematic because the needs of the Joint Office of Homeland Services and other facilities have gone up. D, the county has not been able to keep up with the safety needs of employees and community members, particularly around treatment centers and libraries. Property damage continues to be a challenge, though to a lesser extent than it was in 2020. Finally, some DCM efforts to support workforce equity are stymied for lack of staff to measure and track improvements in outcomes. So going to the my next slide, the program offers. Oh, you're already there, pardon me. The DCM Seaback recommends the following program offers as those we feel best meet the needs of the county workforce and the community. And we recommend prioritizing the program offers that target the high workforce vacancy rate, worker safety, procurement and contracting efficiencies, building disadvantaged contractor capacity, and deferred facility management. So those program offers that we are specifically like to call out for DCM, 72005B, the Finance and Risk Management Purchasing Multiple Marketplace Contracts plus Optimization, the FRM Motor Vehicle Tax, and a quick comment, we recommend this position as it would appear to bring substantial additional revenue from rental tax compliance. We also see this as a fairness issue, that compliant businesses are not subsidizing those who are not complying with their tax responsibilities. Regional Construction Workforce Diversity Funder Collaborative, another one. One that was not in the budget, but we recommend is the Construction Diversity and Equity Ad Program Specialist. The Recruiter Training and Capacity Building Program offer. And one that I would like to call out from previous years is the Central HR, the College to County Interns Program. This program appears to support workforce equity by better reflecting the community the county serves, and it provides leadership opportunities and experience to disadvantaged students. So in closing, we would like to note that a member of the public provided comment at 2 of our meetings. This was an unusual occurrence, and we appreciated the community members' effort and time to find our agenda, contact staff to learn how to attend the meeting, and prepare a detailed recommendation about digitizing all of the county records. We note that in target program offer 78404 records management describes the resources the county dedicates to this effort. And we encourage the county to continue and if possible, increase the pace of digitizing county records as it would increase the public access to this information. And last but not least, we would like to acknowledge and give special thanks to Deb Anderson and Matt Moline and Lisa Whedon for her work at DCA, for all of their support, their coordination, their facilitation, responsiveness, and their enthusiasm. Kept us going. They were essential to the organization and the scheduling of our discussions, and they provided just amazing perspective on all of the budget requests discussed. And so additionally, we'd like to also thank all of our guests and presentators for their time and their informative presentations and their responsiveness to our questions. So thank you very much for your time.
And thanks to the rest of your team. Appreciate you mentioning all the folks on your team. We'll see you at the DCA.
Wonderful. We look forward to it.
I'll join in that appreciation and really careful review of our budget that we propose. So thank you very, very much. Now we'll move to the next slide, where we're going to talk about how we approached this budget and what were the priorities that reflect a lot of what Moses referenced in how the Seaback approached their work. While DCM continues to focus on our core work, property tax administration, financial management, creating the budget, managing our county human capital, we are also responding to key priorities important to our department and to the county as a whole. In FY23, we're going to particularly focus on the following emergent areas. We're going to move from response to recovery for COVID-19. This FY23 budget plans for the second year of ARP funding to mitigate impacts and further our response as a local health authority. Where hiring new employees remains a serious challenge for DCM and all county departments. We hope that through the recruiter training capacity building program we've proposed, a modest solution to cultivate new recruiters across the county. The future of work will continue to be a priority. Central Human Resources is leading the County Future of Work initiative, empowering our organization to move intentionally to a workforce that includes on-site, hybrid, and fully remote workers. As we move out of the Future of Work pilot period into long-term arrangements, we're focused on several initiatives, including rethinking office and desk spaces in partnership with the Department of County Assets, helping managers with the tools they need to support their assessments. Equity. We will continue as a department to strive for an equitable, inclusive, and racially just workplace through our hiring practices and the implementation of the Workforce Equity Strategic Plan. In the next two slides, our DCM Equity Manager, Estelle Norris, will provide an in-depth description of the equity work we've been doing and where we're headed. One big piece that marked this year and takes us into next is the leadership transition. I joined the county in July of 2021, and I'm really pleased that Travis Graves joined the COO team as our deputy. Together, we really need to work with many of the department directors who are newer to their roles as well. It's quite a team. This new team really needs to focus on problem solving, strategy, vision, and the future. And that's where we look forward to going in the year ahead. Workday is a central priority for us. It is the county's enterprise system used by all departments to manage human resources and financial transactions, records, and reporting. The Workday system provides the backbone to support the county's quick shift from on-site work to telework for some at the beginning of the pandemic, while many other organizations struggled because of their antiquated systems based on paper processes. When we launched Workday, we thought that 25% of our time would be used for regular user support and 75% of our time would be on system maintenance and enhancements, making it a better experience for all users. What turned out to happen was the opposite. And this means that we have a significant backlog of key configuration updates that, if implemented, would very much improve the overall system performance and user experience. Additionally, a recent evaluation from Workday suggests that we could experience increased system optimization, efficiency, and accuracy if we updated the configuration for time entry, payroll, and absence tracking. Through the program offer expanded Workday support and for finance and for HR, DCM's Finance and Risk Management and Central Human Resources divisions are requesting additional ongoing funding to begin to implement the necessary configurations to keep up with the general system enhancements. The department also requested one-time only funding to support the update of the time, payroll, and absence modules. And that's Workday Support Review and Recommend Program Offer 72053. And we would like to enhance necessary reporting through the Data Mart solution, and I can go into further detail there if you would like. That's Program Offer 72054. Without these investments, the county will continue to fall behind in its ability to optimize its use of Workday. And then finally, workforce security. Finally, but not finally, workforce security we see as a huge priority for us in the year ahead. Our employees are increasingly facing dangerous situations that no one should have to face at work. A leadership team came together in late 2021 to consider the issue, and we were able to recently hire a Director of Workforce Security, Dorothy Elmore, who reports to the COO's office. Through these efforts, we intend to find new strategies to keep our workforce safer. I'd now like to pass the presentation over to Estelle Norris to talk about our approach to equity in this year's budget.
Thank you, Serena. Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. It's good to see you all. My name is Estelle Norris, and I use she, her pronouns. I am the DCM Equity and Inclusion Manager, as Serena stated. I'm grateful to be here, and I also want to recognize the privilege that I hold being able to share some of what DCM is doing with all of you. What I will share today will give you glimpses of our work and our efforts, but will not be able to capture the whole story. And to start, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our budget review committee that was created this year to help us with our ongoing efforts to create program offers that incorporate plain language, making them more accessible to everyone. The committee included representatives from each division and also represented a non-represented staff. I was able to attend a Seaback meeting also to share our process and gather some feedback from them to help inform our future process. This collaborative effort opened up the door for more folks to be able to be part of and better understand our budget process, but it also highlighted the need to see more of this in the future. We are still in the race to become a more equitable and racially just DCM. Some of the methods we are using to get us closer are all manager meetings that focus on connection and learning around the core competencies and other countywide values. Monthly discussions in our DCM senior leadership meetings called Equity Conversations, where we discuss an equity topic and follow up with an accountability check-in so leaders have an opportunity to showcase how they're incorporating the learning into their own work and where they may be facing challenges. And then also team building and competency building in divisions and work units to better understand diversity, equity, and inclusion practices and how to apply them to daily work. One of the greatest challenges that we still face in our pursuit of racial justice is that our department remains about 70% white. Because Black and Brown people still make up a smaller percentage of the department overall, we cannot rely on data alone to tell the story of employee experiences. As we described in our transmittal letter, DCM tends to have higher ratings of satisfaction by employees in countywide surveys, but this is not all-inclusive. We still wrestle with the disappointment of not being able to disaggregate data for our department by race because the numbers are too small to do that and maintain confidentiality. This is why relationship building has really been a critical part of the role of the equity manager. And it's just one of the ways that I'm able to give sound and visibility to what cannot be accurately measured in a survey or a report. In terms of the Workforce Equity Strategic Plan, DCM has met all of our goals up to this point, and we are on track to completing the final 2022 commitments as well. Our dynamic DCM Equity Committee will work with our leadership and HR teams to get us over the finish line. And we are being thoughtful about developing solutions that will not just check the box for WESP, but create sustainable and lasting change. And those efforts include things like our successful onboarding liaison program, our monthly equity committee learning sessions, and continuing to support the College to County program. As I close, I just want to say our efforts to eradicate injustice and disparities for marginalized and underrepresented staff do not end with the last WESP deliverable for this year. We still have work to do. Racism, including anti-Blackness, still exists in overt and covert ways. Across the county, I have said goodbye to a number of my friends because of unhealthy workplace culture. I did not remember to bring a tissue with me. Many of those folks being Black or African American. Thank you. Our future goals have to put more emphasis on creating conditions for people of color and people from other underrepresented groups to join our organization and thrive while they are here, not just get them in the door. If we don't move swiftly towards this goal, I will say as a department and as a county as a whole, I fear that we will be right back here and retelling the story of September 14th, 2017, which is what led us to the first WESP originally. I want to thank you all for your time and for this space.
Thank you, Estella, and we are so happy to have you on the team, and I am so happy to see you in person.
Thank
It's been
you.
way too long.
Thank you.
Exactly. And we're happy to have her leadership in this next year ahead as we move quickly and fiercely forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're a couple slides now. Oh, no, you're right there. Of course you are. Excellent. So now we're just going to take a quick look at some of the big budget issues. And what you see here is that the DCM budget is about 230 million. And this shows you what it is by fund. And overwhelmingly, the risk fund is our largest fund. The general fund is the next largest, and so on. So we're dominated by the risk fund, and you'll see in the next slide how the risk fund has grown significantly from FY 2019 until today, and that's the blue line there. The big reason, and we'll get into more depth when we look into central human resources and into central finance, but the primary reason for that growth is the benefits associated with the 400 new employees that have been added. So the general fund line is the green line, and there you really just see inflationary growth over 5 years with the addition of a small amount of general fund programs in the last 2 years. Nothing particularly striking there. Preschool for All is the orange line. And what's notable there is that while we budgeted in FY 22 for implementation costs of 13 million, the actual costs were only 7.4. So they've shown a decrease for the subsequent year as well as operational changes. We thought we needed 2 people, we only need 1. So that's why our Preschool for All costs have decreased. And then the final line is the ARPA line, the Fed State Fund line. And you can really tell that we're not the biggest users of ARPA. And I think that was really clear in Christian and Kim's presentation as well. And so we'll go into more in depth about that, though, what that looks like, what that 3 million looks like later on. The next slide shows our 5-year trend in our budget by FTE. And it really shows relatively stable growth over the years with only 3 additional FTE proposed this year. We can go into further detail, but the program offers show 2 FTE for the expanded workday support positions, 1 administrative support for our CFO, and a new FTE in DART within existing resources. And then we reduced the Preschool for All, so that netted down to 3 new FTE total for the year. Next slide. This shows you from all funds, the budgets by category. And it makes personnel look very small and our budget and materials supplies look really big. The major factor for materials and supplies, in fact, 98% of that number is made up from the benefits costs, insurance premiums associated with employees. So that's why that component is so big in our budget. And next slide. Now we're going to shift from the department overview to the division level discussion. And I'm going to keep talking for a few more minutes. My apologies, everyone. Next slide. So here are the budgets by division in DCM. And it looks there that Central Human Resources makes up the biggest amount. It's really interesting, though, when you compare Central Human Resources 162 million to the number of FTE, which are 48. Our largest division is DART, actually, which is in the orange in the slide, and they have 137. So again, what this reflects is that the budget for benefits is budgeted in the division of Central Human Resources, which causes that to be the dominant budget, but not the dominant FTE distribution where our employees are found. So, and now I will move on to the director's office. We'll start here and then we'll get to some more interesting people than me. So the DCM director's office is home to the county's chief operating officer, me, and I also serve as the DCM director. Our team includes a deputy COO, a strategic initiatives manager, and a senior administrative analyst. Programs reporting to our office include equity team, the DCM business service team, DCM non-D, human resources unit, and the workforce security director. Our office is responsible for the administrative infrastructure and financial health of the county. We provide strategic direction for countywide projects and ensure that complex decisions are informed by a countywide perspective. We work with the chair, the commissioners, DCM divisions, county departments to establish operational priorities and objectives. I get the opportunity and privilege to supervise the department directors for the Department of County Human Services, Health, Assets, County Assets, Department of Community Services, Community Justice, the library, as well as the Complaints Investigations Unit and Emergency Management, providing a crucial link between corporate policy setting and departmental implementation. The equity team, with Estelle's leadership, provides the support for departmental learning sessions about equity and inclusion principles, consultation for managers and individuals. Our business services program provides business and financial services for the department, including budget development, accounts receivable, payable, procurement, contracting, and administrative and general accounting support. And then our human resources unit provides strategic HR services for the department and non-departmental work units. Our office is entirely funded by the general fund, which makes us unique in DCM. And we have several new programs that we are proposing out of our office for FY23. The first one is 7200B for professional services, $100,000. 50 of that is one time only. Again, with the massive transition, we think it's really important to have the flexibility to be responsive to the training needs and to the team building needs of this new leadership team. But it also gives us the opportunity to do more employee engagement, professional development for county managers generally, and innovate around countywide strategic matters. Program offer 72013 is our capital planning program offer. It's one time only from the general fund. This project would provide funds to update and guide the county's future strategy for capital planning, prioritize infrastructure investments, and provide critical frameworks for long-term asset management. We would build on a prior effort that we think needs to be revisited, and then we would also get a chance to review our policies and procedures at that time as well. The next program offer is 72055, Contractor Capacity Review. This is $250,000 of one-time only funds to study, analyze, and provide recommendations to promote contractor wage equity, utilizing both short-term and long-term approaches to evaluate and recommend courses of action for state and local policy matters. We recognize this is a very complex challenge, and we're trying to bite off just a little bit and start to work on that. And I can go into more detail if you would like. Finally, out of our office, we have a human resources analyst senior position that would report to the DCM equity manager. The funding for this position moved from DART into the DCM manager's office, and the total cost for the transferred position is roughly $150,000. So with that, you've heard the proposals from the COO's office, and I'm really pleased to turn it over to Christian, our amazing budget director and head of the division.
Go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So hi, back again, Christian Elkin, budget director.
This is when you're supposed to ask for like $20 million increase
right after this morning's presentation. Well, to disappoint you, we are asking for nothing in this budget process. We would just like to maintain the wonderful staff that I do have right now. But no significant budget changes doesn't mean that we're not going to do anything significant during the year. So First, I have a confession to make, Commissioner Stegman. You mentioned reading at a 5th grade level for our documents and transparency and accessibility. One of my brilliant staff ran the budget director's message through the Hemingway program that Jacob mentioned. We fail that significantly. It is written at a 12th grade or beyond level. And one of the really important tenets of the things that how we're approaching and I think how we've approached this work is that we really want to try to find that sweet spot of meeting Oregon budget law and all the technicalities of the budget, but really being able to explain it to the community, because ultimately that's who we're serving. And so we're launching all kinds of fun projects. I hope they're all smiling behind me to, create databases that we can link to our website so it can be interactive, to revisit documents that we've had for 20, 25 plus years and really critically look at them and think, is this the way that we are telling our story to the community? Doing all of that work, I keep threatening to take a graphic design course in the summertime to really take something complicated and put it into a graphic that we can hand to somebody and say, here's an easy way for you to understand and get involved in our budget. We're also super excited this summer. We're going to have our first college to county intern. Jeff, our economist, has some incredible projects, and one of those is to build out a database of historical and updatable economic data so that when someone calls us from the 6th floor or the community and says, talk to us about rent increases, talk to us about this type of market, talk to us about this economic phenomenon that's happening, we will be able to more easily transition without having to spend 3 or 4 days, researching, grabbing data, then repurposing it. So we're really excited for all of those opportunities to really just re-engage our community with something that is incredibly complex and hard to understand. And then the last thing is that we're going to be reinstituting a budget and brief document so that you all could take that out into the community when you're presenting on the budget. So no significant changes.
Thanks so much. Travis is going to stand in for Shelley Kent, our interim Chief Human Resources Officer, who is negotiating today. And so Travis is going to stand in with a role he knows well. Thanks, Travis.
Yes. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Travis Graves, the county's Deputy Chief Operating Officer, he, him, his pronouns. Like Serena said, I'm stepping in for our interim CHRO, Shelley Kent, who is doing the hard work of marketing. I think, as you know, we have 8 contracts that are open in this year. I will kind of go over quickly what it is we do in Central HR. We're really responsible for your HR policies and practices. We continue to maintain relationships with our 13 unions. We like to support all of our employees, so the entire employee life cycle, whether that's when they're hired or when they actually retire. We provide professional development opportunities, benefits, wellness. We play a significant role in the Workforce Equity Strategic Plan. Of over 50% of it, if not more, of the basic work is done within Central HR. We also work and support the College to County program, the talent acquisition efforts, new manager orientation. I'm going to kind of highlight for you the differences in our budget. I think you've heard that the major significant change is the change in the risk fund for Central HR. That is due to the benefits with 400 new FTE that are added to 409, I think it is, to this year's budget. That significantly increases that fund in order to be able to fund all of our employee benefits. Not a huge, no huge change, except that we did implement last year the change from MODA to Cigna, which actually created some significant savings for us, which was a great thing. I'm going to go over for you the requests that we have for the budget. I think you've heard from Serena and others on some of them. We've touched on the need and the desire for the county to continue to push forward in terms of recruiting. We have a request to bring 4 limited duration recruiters in to support that effort. Hot off the presses, I just heard this morning that the number we've been using for vacancies across the county is about 600. We actually, as of this week, might be down to somewhere around 150. On the next couple slides, I'm going to show you, you can see the uptick. So that's really, really good news, but you're adding 400 more to it. So this program comes at a really good time. Go back, I'm going to go over the highlights first. There's a number of Workday related requests. Both finance and HR is asking for additional support ongoing to maintain the system. We're also requesting funding to start a program where we reconfigure how we're doing absence payroll and timekeeping, which we think is going to create a huge amount of efficiency for us in the county. And then we also, within HR, are requesting a limited duration position to support the data mart work that's being done, mostly used within the finance area and by all of our departments. The other piece is the college to county ongoing internship program. You funded last year a pilot program. This would create that as ongoing to fund 25 interns, which has been quite the success, I think, across the entire organization. Now, next slide. So one of the things that I think you've all heard about is the Great Resignation. And I think one of the things we've looked at Multnomah County to say, are we feeling that? Is that what's happening here? And what we actually found is we really haven't seen a huge change in our turnover rates based on the pandemic. But what we had seen is quite a shift in our ability to maintain hiring. So we had 600 vacancies, which felt like the Great Resignation for us because we had so few staff. At the same time, we were staffing up for COVID. So not only do we have staff leave, but we had hundreds of limited duration and temporary positions that also were added to our budget. This slide, both my next slides, I'm illustrating what that looks like. I know they're kind of messy, and so I'm happy to offline answer any questions about it. But what I want to show you is that overall, in terms of hiring, the great news here is if you see at the very end, promotions are finally ticking back up. That means we're hiring folks and we're hiring them internally. Reclassifications, we're actually right-sizing our positions. Quite a bit happened during the pandemic, which from fiscal year 2020 forward. And those numbers continue to be high, which is a good thing because we're going to move towards hiring those positions. And just in general, that third line, you can see how much hiring we have done as an organization countywide since the pandemic. It shouldn't be a surprise to us as we've completely ramped up, whether it was adding new shelters, staffing, the public health response, and also other work that we've done across the entire county. The next slide talks about the detail of that information. And it goes into a little bit more where you can see that countywide, if the end of fiscal year 2020 or in fiscal year, the numbers are completely ticking up for hiring new positions. So when I said we've been using the 600 number for vacancies, you can see we've actually increased our hiring of new positions quite a bit over the last couple of quarters, which is really nice to see. We did a lot of direct appointments during the pandemic for limited duration and temp jobs. That's completely fallen off and is going down, which means we're actually doing our processes and recruiting using our normal ways of recruiting. The final section there is just really letting you know the types of positions. You can see that the regular represented numbers in terms of hiring is really increased. The numbers for limited duration and on calls as well. But the direct appointments now are starting to go down, which is, I think, a good thing. So hopefully that kind of just illustrates for you kind of overall trends within our hiring processes within Central HR. And I think with that, I get to turn it over to Mike.
Assessor, bringing in the money.
Morning, Chair, Commissioners. I'm Mike Vaughn, Director of the Division of Assessment, Recording, and Taxation, which includes County Assessor. So thank you. So DART's purpose overall is to fund our community through property tax administration. We also support it through clerk functions, administering clerk functions, issuing marriage licenses, recording essential documents such as deeds, making sure that those documents can be found easily into perpetuity, and also processing passport applications. Since opening customer services in July, DART has been adapting its services and delivery models to new realities to achieve its objectives. An example of this is reallocating budget to create one FTE as opposed to asking for more general fund above our inflationary support. So overall, the budget for the coming year is status quo, and increases are only attributable to inflation. A portion, again, of our A&T expense is funded through the CAFA grant program. So that'll bring in approximately $3.1 million for fiscal year 23. And I'll be happy to note that our grant was approved by the Department of Revenue just on Friday. So we're all set there. Next slide, please. So a lot of the significant program changes in DART were born out of the pandemic, right? So we were closed for roughly a year. During that time, DART still processed marriage applications. We did that through mail instead of in person as normal. We developed a soft phone capability that allows us to route customer calls through agents' laptop computers, which we still use today. We offered video meetings for things like inspections for homeowners who wanted to meet with appraisers. We also worked on developing something known as the digital research room, which will allow customers to research recorded documents from home, as opposed to having to drive into the office, just making things a little more accessible. So this type of flexibility and adaptability continues in DART as we improve customer access through technology, right? So an example of this, DART leadership attended 20 neighborhood association meetings this year virtually to explain some of the nuances of the tax system and answer a lot of the questions that taxpayers have usually around tax season. We also implemented a new e-payment portal for better access for customers to access their bills, pay their bills online, and then of course, receive any help via chat, email, or call-in functionality. So these are all things that we've adapted over the coming years that went live for this current year. In the coming months, DART will go live with its web-based program, as I mentioned, the digital research room. That'll allow, again, customers to access recorded documents as well as certified copies remotely. We are also in the contracting phases to develop an e-file option for roughly 25,000 businesses in Multnomah County to file their personal property tax returns with us remotely, virtually, whatever, so they don't have to actually come into the office or bring in paper and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So funding our community begins with identifying property and developing statutory values for over 300,000 properties. Assessed value on the slide is the value used for calculating properties tax. That, along with district budgets, including a number of voter-approved tax measures, yielded a total property tax levied, billed, collected, and distributed for the current tax year on behalf of 65 taxing districts of just over $2.2 billion. Of that, Multnomah County's portion is $412 million, not including the additional $100 million for the library district. Next slide, please. So service trends from July of this year to present, we've been open for business in the main lobby. This is through appointments that are both appointment-based walk-in services. Applications for marriage license are by walk-in. Recording services are available by appointment, walk-in, and electronically. Parcel management services are available by appointment only, and passports continue to be by appointment. However, currently the team is processing an average of 750 passport applications per month, which gets us to pre-pandemic levels. So all the services you're seeing here are back to what we were doing room 175 pre-pandemic, and we'll continue to evaluate service trends, needs, community access, those types of things as we move forward. With that, DART appreciates the board's continued support of our vital programs supporting and funding our community. I appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. To you, Eric.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Kafori. Eric Ariano, Chief Financial Officer, and I supervise the Finance and Risk Management Group. We pay the county's bills, we do the county's accounting, we prepare the financial statements for our organization. We handle the county's cash resources, our banking agreements, excise taxes, and we're also responsible for any debt issuance for Multnomah County. We also pay our employees, our payroll unit. We support the workday modules for finance. We handle contracts and procurement in our purchasing group. And then within our risk management group, we handle our workers' compensation program and our general liability and workplace safety initiatives. And we also have a fiscal compliance group that essentially maintains oversight over any federal dollars we pass through down to human services providers. And so I'm going to, with this slide, just highlight some of the proposed changes for finance risk management from 22 to 23. about a $1.4 million increase in the general fund. This involves adding one position to my office for administrative support. It'll support me as well as other finance managers in finance and risk management. We're also proposing adding another Workday position that will primarily support enhanced reporting within Workday, but also really support with our data project across the county. They're really used to pull in raw data and from different systems and essentially produce reports that pull information from different systems in an efficient way. Those are two ongoing asks, and there's three one-time only asks. The first one is purchasing local marketplace contracts and optimization request. And this is a request, we've been implemented with local marketplace for a little bit over 3 years now. This is kind of a reset on our implementation of that system, looking to see where we can make enhancements to how we use the system and how we support the system, but also taking a look at legacy SAP contract information, how we transition that. The second request is with one time only is adding an LDA position within the county treasury group. This is around tax compliance with motor vehicle rental tax and doing more extensive audits around those taxes. And then adding some money for regional construction workforce diversity funder collaborative. It's a long one. And this will work with regional partners, making investments on boosting diversity in the workforce for construction. And then for other funds, there's a decrease of $4.7 million. And this includes both the risk fund and the preschool for all fund for my area. We are, as Serena said, we are reducing one FTE within that program. When we implemented the preschool for all tax, we met estimates on what we needed to support the program. And after a little bit over a year and a half, I think we've kind of assessed that we just need one project manager and some tax consultant so we can eliminate this position. We never hired for it. And then the second piece is that we actually ended up scaling the programs this year. We broke out the county portion with the city of Portland because they administer the tax for us. And there was actually a decrease of $5.7 million. And this is primarily, I think Serena mentioned this, for the first 3 years of the contract with the city. There's implementation cost for the new system, and third years where most of it rolls off. So there's still some there, but most of it's paid off. So we got to kind of get into that. In that fourth year, we get into normal administrative costs with the city of Portland. So we'll have significant decrease there. So next slide. So I know we're tight on time, so I'll be quick with these next two slides, but this shows essentially all countywide accounts payable transactions. The blue section is essentially electronic payments. The red section is checks, and the green section is special handling, which is another version of checks. We try to maintain electronic payments at about 70% of our volume. As you can see, from 2019 to 21, we had a sharp increase in the amount of payments overall, but also in checks. And this is primarily driven with the fact that we're going through a pandemic and we had to get substantial amount of payments out to human service providers, but also that we did a lot of rental assistance payments. And actually with the leadership of the county chair's office, along with DCHS, we set up what we call rapid response payment process for rental assistance. And this involves making sure that we establish a separate check run every week to make sure we can expedite rental assistance payments to those in need. Over the last 2 years, I think we've processed over 74 million and then about 30,000 invoices for rental assistance for this. So next slide, please. And as Christian said, with a rising budget of over $3 billion, obviously the county has a lot more cash assets. And this is a reflection from 2014 through 22, our investment portfolio. As you can see, and this is year to date, so it might come down a little bit, but we're over $1 billion in our investment portfolio, primarily driven by the fact that we've gotten increased business income tax collections, a library bond that we issued, preschool for all tax receipts, supportive housing tax receipts. So as we we're making sure that we're paying our obligations to provide these services. We're also trying to squeeze those cash assets as much as we can to earn some interest. So next slide. And here's some program highlights. I know we've kind of talked about some of these. Serena mentioned that we've distributed over 94,000 gift cards since the public emergency. One thing I really want to highlight here is that we did this in a way that was the most secure way from an internal control standpoint. Distributing almost 100,000 gift cards is pretty risky. And so we set up really good controls to make sure that those gift cards are being tracked, they're being distributed to the right person, that we can follow up when there's issues with those gift cards. We stood up the tax program for Preschool for All. One thing I did want to highlight, added a piece here on our ERP support. We're developing an online on-demand training courses for finance users across the organization for onboarding. And this is really aimed to make sure when an employee is hired, that they're given the proper training on their specific area. And at the conclusion of their onboarding process, they get to meet ERP support that will support them in their area. This is a big improvement, especially with our remote environment. And then we continue to maintain compliance with ARPA regulations. We do quarterly and annual reporting. I mentioned the rental assistance rapid response payment process we developed. And then essential purchasing processed over 120 contract exemptions and 76 extensions under board's emergency authority. And the final piece here, I wanted to highlight that our central purchasing group, with our supportive housing partners, did a cooperative procurement to qualify over 21 suppliers for alternative sheltering, which was a huge success with our partners of Washington County and Clackamas County. So I'll pass it back to Serena.
Thank you, Eric. And I know we are out of time, so I will wrap up very quickly. I just do want to say really quickly that I'm super grateful to be working with all the leaders that we've got in the Department of County Management. They're extraordinary folks. Next, we go down 2 slides. Just so you know, for reference, all of the program offers we shared with you today are on this slide and on the next, so that you can easily track them and find them again. So the next slide. And then the next slide. And I'll just briefly say here, this was our ARP report. We have 3 positions that were ARP funded. We would like to continue them into the next year. They are in labor relations, in reporting on ARP funds, and in all of a sudden forgetting the third one. Future of work. How could I forget the future of work? Big and bold. And so the one change that we're asking for the coming year are some funds that we could implement some pilots around the county about how we would do our space planning in order to be more efficient and better use of the spaces that we have. And so those can all be found on the next slide, the ARP proposals. With that, I will close and be very grateful for your patience and your time as we worked through our presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. All right, commissioners, questions and comments? Start with you, Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Serena, and all of you who presented. And it's okay, Christian, I forgive you. 12th grade, next year, 11th grade. We'll get there. But no, I appreciate all of the hard work and everything that you've done, especially through the pandemic, and just really appreciate the presentations today. Thank you.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks everyone for this presentation. I have a few questions, but I might just send them afterwards as I kind of like digest this a little bit. But I mean, this is really good information to start from and look at the different budget things. I did have some questions, Travis, around the vacancies and some of those things, so I'll follow up with that. Oh, I was like, there you are. Just in terms of where we actually think we'll be, what the percentage is, and what the historic percentage, has been. This is just kind of a heads up.
I feel like our vacancy numbers doubled during the pandemic in terms of, the historic numbers, I think, and then our hiring slowed way down for regular positions. So like we're finally getting back to normal.
Yeah. So like it was lots of vacancies, lots of new hires that were coming in, and then being able to do that. Okay. I appreciate that. And then I just like, my only comment is just, I really appreciate the discussion about the equity work that's happening in DCM and all of that. So I really appreciate the time and the thoughtfulness that you're doing as you're looking at your own department and how to engage in that work. So thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Serena and everyone. This was a really, really great information presentation. You know, I too may have some follow-up questions, but a couple of comments. One, that a theme that I saw reflected in every presentation was this theme of moving from crisis response and using crisis response to transform. We heard it from DART, we heard it from HR, that really taking the lessons and using them to improve, not just in kind of marginal ways, but in significant ways, the way that we do our work. So appreciated that. I too really appreciated the equity conversation. I think Estelle has left, but I didn't know that she'd taken on this position. So congratulations, Estelle, wherever you are. That's really exciting. And, you know, I'll mention, this was the earlier presentation, but very much appreciated the walking through of the ADVSD process to understand how departments are thinking about equity. I do have some questions about the HR information, so I'll follow up, but kind of detail things. And then I guess one question for now about the program offer, the contractor wage review. So glad to see this in the budget. You know, it's clearly been something that we've known is both an equity issue and kind of a structural issue for the county in terms of being able to sustain our programs if we can't pay the contracted workforce an equitable wage. So I will have, when I look at my question, I realize it's so detailed that I don't want to take the time to go into it now, but I'll have some questions about how we're approaching that work. And specifically, you know, there's a difference between looking at a market and saying, are we paying at market? And looking at equity for wages and saying, are we paying equitable wages for what the work is worth? So just some follow-up questions and discussion about that. But other than that, if there's anything you wanted to.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, we very much look forward to answering your questions as we get them. Yeah, I think they're probably too detailed to start now, but thank you.
Great. Thank you. This was great.
Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. And I know I think Moses has left, and just wanted to thank him and the rest of the Seaback for all of their hard work. And I too want to thank Estelle, who's also left, but really appreciate the way that the department is focusing on equity. And all of you, thank you for the presentation today. I do have a couple of questions, and I can raise them now and then they can be addressed, you know, offline. But one pertains to one of the priorities, you know, when I really like how you know, set out the priorities and talked about things like future of work, equity, leadership transition, and one was workforce security. And obviously that has been a huge issue recently. In particular, it's always been something, but particularly recently. And I'm curious, I know that there was a consultant's report that was issued in March with a number of recommendations made. And then I see you talked about this being a priority here, and I saw some program offers in DCA. And I'm trying to figure out how to put that together to ask the questions in the right place about, you know, whether some of those recommendations were taken from the consultant's report, who's doing what, where are the urgent issues being addressed, and how.
Great, and we'll look forward to providing more in the future. I think one of the challenges is the funding for this year for the Director of Workplace Security was in DCA. And we are going to move that to DCM. So we've created the reporting structure in DCM, but what you're seeing is the transition, I think, between DCA and DCM in that funding. And then some of the funding in DCA is to provide the new director with an opportunity to have resources to implement some security recommendations. So, and to figure out what the priority is for implementing those. So that would be, we were hoping to find some resources for it. So that's why that's in DCA, because it's related to facilities. But it is a little, split between us right now.
Yeah. Okay, that's super helpful to know that context. And I can raise some of the specific questions, but then wherever they fit, they can fit. So thank you for that. And then the one other question, again, just to be followed up with, but is more about contracting. And I don't know if that is, again, in DCM or if it fits in another area. But considering that as a priority, just because there are two elements I think are of particular relevance right now, especially. And the first is how we do streamline our processes for all of our community-based organizations and people who are, and organizations contracting with us, because I think all of us have heard that's an issue and a challenge, particularly for the smaller organizations. And then the second is around contract administration, operations, and oversight. And that's kind of a bigger thing, but maybe there are pieces of it. I know in the past, there had been audits that called out the need to address sort of the risks inherent in our contracting system, and that there's an approach, a governance structure for contracting that we probably should be implementing that's a best practice that I would love to talk more about. It's not compliance, with the technical contracting, because obviously we do awesome at that, but it's that connection of, there were some recommendations made a while back that were reiterated a couple of times by the auditor. And I just wanted to follow up on those because those seem very relevant as we have hundreds of millions of more dollars in revenue, especially with the new measures, et cetera. So my voice is going away, but I would love to talk more about that. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Day one, check. And just to remind commissioners that all the questions that are asked by, even if they're by individual commissioners, will be distributed to everyone. So you, as your fellow commissioners are coming up with a question, you say, that is a really good question. You'll get the answer to it. So that is the conclusion of today's budget briefing, number one. Tomorrow, we will be back here for Department of Community Services and Department of Community Assets. And as another reminder, all of our budget meetings are starting at 9 a.m., which is a change from prior times. So get here early. I know I'm talking to myself here. Time to be on time. So we will see you all tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you so much.